Welcome to our daily horrors. I'm Meek and Nomicon, and today I'm playing for the game Sanator, the Scarlet Scarf, where the city is dying, and now we need to discover the mysteries behind it. Chronicles of Rustand? Interesting. 6 days left until the epidemic. We brothers of St. Elmo don't have drinks in the morning. Richard talks through his teeth and frowns, or to try and seem more strict, but it seems he's just another lodger for old Magda, not one of the brothers, not a Sanator, not a hangman, and of course not a saviour, more of a grandkid to be wined, dined and well cared for to prevent him from losing weight. It's hard for Richard to acknowledge, but after the fear and hatred, after the futile, heart-wrenching hope, and following bitter disappointment, after everything he had seen in the eyes of the commoners during the years of servitude, he likes Magda's attitude. That's why the brother does not want to quarrel with the old lady. He knows he'll hurt them both if he snaps and rudely shows her place in the strict Tentarium hierarchy. But Magda continues to fuss over him. How come, my dear? It's customary here in Rustand. From time immemorial, it is so. Beer in the morning won't get you drunk, only help your stomach wake up. Even my grandpa taught so. Trying to distract himself from this embarrassment, Richard imagines the drunkard who once lived in this house. Must have been a good old man. Richard never had relatives. He had no surname, Murdoch, but no family, only the Brotherhood. With Tentaria as your mother and Elmo as your father, all good people from the frozen taiga to the shining milty mountains will call you brother. The high-flown words of the testament echo in his mind. No ale, no wine, no sleeper forbid, moonshine. Brew me the herbs, Magda. The old lady looks at him sympathetically and nods her grey head with concern. Got stiff bowels, darling? You can say it straight. There's no need to be shy. I'll cure you in no time. Not that brew. Another one. The one for the hangover. While the old lady tries to digest this contradictory demand, Richard notices his shadow slowly coming to life. It ripples, then detaches from the wall the pale northern sunlight had pressed it against. Are you going to use your shadow to eat the old woman? That's a little intense. Shoot, hisses Richard, but the shadow has already awakened. It distorts and changes into the most grotesque forms, threatening to swallow the unsuspecting Magda or cut her apart with sharp, bird-like claws. Hey, get out! Why do you talk to old Magda that way, grandchild? Hangover brew, so be it. Richard feels awkward and lies in response. It was a cat sitting on the window. Magda turns around at last. The tranquil light of the last warm days of autumn falls through this dim, dusty window. It plays with the floating specks of dust, gleams off the jars of glass and copper, and only Richard and Magda stand in its way, casting two straight, still shadows on the plastered wall. Oh wait, so is this the countdown until the Scarlet Staff? Oh, interesting, okay. What about day 5 then? 5 days left until the epidemic. Well, this seems a lot more foreboding. Richard steps silently under the countless arches of his dream's passages. The ringing of bells attracts him, drives him into the dusk, coated chambers. Their owner, Anga, stays frozen, turned aside, pretending the Sanator's coming means nothing to her. But Richard knows it is not so. Wait, is that part of a jaw? That definitely resembles teeth, right? That is so cool. His attention darts to her new creation, a huge, monstrous birdcage with the gates bent outward, like the ribs of an autopsied cadaver. The Sanator is used to the Shadow's grotesque creations, the most vivid combinations of forms and images. Hadn't he seen them for years already? Today, however, anger manages to impress him. What is it? Anga sighs and throws a brief glance at her guest. No greeting, no thanks from you, as usual. Despite the unfriendly words, the tone of her voice tells Richard she's pleased with the question. I like it, but something's missing. The Sanator isn't generous with his compliments, expecting a catch. Anger, as if expecting such a review, flashes a ragged smile and turns into smoke almost immediately. A trembling gust of it slides through the eerie chair, flowing to the cage. A moment later, a bizarre black bird treads the bone perch. Caw! She cries as she unfurls her mighty wings, slaps them against the bars, and bangs her beak on the metal. Look, just because I like the cage doesn't mean I like you, bird. I'm willing to kill the bird. Death to the birds! Ah, now I see. Well, I should have guessed. Will you sit in this cage now? Okay, I take it back. You are a mighty cool bird. I like the impossible eyes. Ooh. You know what? You shall be the one bird I allow to live. The bird answers and swells with clusters of open eyes. Richard sighs warily, not impressed by the smouldering stare of a dozen pupils. Why do you keep asking for it again and again, Anga? Don't you know the commandments? The shadow bends lazily, sliding out of the cage in a stream of smoke, flowing through the bars like a mist and adopting her human form again. Wait, is she chained? I know they were never inviolable, Richard. I know all brothers violate them. You teach us, pamper us, let us out into the world. Richard raises his finger as if his words were a quote from St. Elmo's Codex. I am not the one accountable for my brothers. I am to be their watchman. Stop talking to me that way. I'm not your toy. Richard frowns, lips pursing in a thin line, wrinkles cracking across his forehead, betwixt his brows. He throws his hands up, showing that her accusations have nothing to do with him. You should not look through my eyes now, Anga. This isn't about the commandments. This is about what you feel, what you desire. The shadow turns around, avoiding looking at him in the eye, and the Sanator knows how angry she is. He must not leave her in such a state. You should not hold on to your anger, poison yourself, obsess over impossible dreams. Trust me, I care about you. Without letting him finish, she turns around and hurls herself at him like a black cat, scratching and striking. You idiot! To the sea with your caring! Let the Templars feast on your commandments! I only wish to live! Richard waits without defending himself, and the strikes weaken, as if anger was beating herself and not him. He is still calm and strict, showing none of his feelings on the surface. I'll do anything to keep you alive, he says, even if you don't believe me or don't have the patience, or to keep you from knowing the sea. I promise. She slumps against his chest, clutching his shoulders with sharp fingers. Is there really no way? Her eyes silently ask. Richard only shakes his head. It is not the time. I have no influence, no ink, no power. Vigilant eyes watch us all. He holds anger and looks into her eyes. The seal pulsates between them. Trust me, together we will make it to the end and we'll be able to bypass it. Anger swells in his arms and rises triumphantly. Her shining eyes nearly throw sparks. Your promise was honest. I felt it. I heard it. You were not lying. Could I? Richard smiles, hiding a bitter pang. Then go ahead. Act. Justify my trust. Richard awakens, bringing the precious grain of the promise with him. Oh, he did not fib. There are ways to keep his promise, and he'll find them. Wait, so is that the shadow that was trying to attack the old woman to begin with? Interesting. 4 days left until the pandemic. Or even the epidemic. Have I just been reading this wrong the entire time? The soul lies in a pile of ash, and blackened fingers dig into the dirty flakes of its last shelter. Again and again it struggles to restore the images of that world. Rays of sunshine in puddles, wet cobblestones and shining roofs, a sliver of sky. Only words left, without the names they used to use, and that, the other memory, that which they did, that which must not be remembered. A cry full of suffering and rage emerges from where the stomach once was. It struggles through the vortex of the throat, pours out of the mouth like a wingless bird, and drops down, its flight ended. The body, the memory of the body, writhes and shakes, giving birth to new cries again and again, as if getting rid of the remnants of flesh, as if repelling everything that could store this cursed memory, until only ashes, a pale glow, and putrid fumes remain. The anger, the grief, and the despair grow and multiply in this new husk. With them comes the envy of those whose world has not yet crumbled into dust. And suddenly, a touch of strength, colour, life. One by one, palms slide into the cloud of ash and vapour that her body has become. They shield and protect and cover her essence from the swarming thoughts and reverberating cries. Wait, do we think this is going to be anger? The shadow? The pain is still with her, but already remote, alien, as if not hers. It is as if someone powerful took it away, pushed it aside, beckoned it to him. Do you remember? The voice seems to come from within, enveloping her with warmth. The soul remembers faces, voices, the old house, and the other things too. I do. She wants to name the entity embracing her, and the name falls readily off her tongue. I remember, Lady Miliar. I can grant you return. Oh wow, that was not the being I was expecting. That does explain all the eyes. An outbreak of bright, burning anger scorches the soul, making vapors and ashes stir violently. But Miliar's hands hold her together. Cool fingers absorb the raging flame, giving her the right to choose. What should I do? Seek the servants of the old master and destroy them. I glued your memory together, all that you have managed to carry through the houses. I grant you the strength and time. What if they have escaped? Mela's laughter trembles, and so do the hands holding the soul, preventing her from crumbling and disappearing. I'll find them, Lady Miliar. Then look at me. Come on. The voice stops, waits, and then does not ask but orders. Look! A whirlpool of colour catches the soul, and countless hands drag her deeper within it. A shining cacophony of thousands of images, sounds and emotions storm in her mind, crumpling, twisting, and tossing her upward like a feather. So wait, is this going to be the source of the epidemic? Most likely, they clearly were seeking retribution, right? Oh, I see the eyeballs. We are being watched. So yeah, I'm curious if that was going to be the shadow, if that was anger. then what would have happened within a day to cause it to get destroyed? If it was her, of course. 3 days left until the epidemic. Despite the late hour, light shined through the windows of the town hall. Executor Winfred yawns widely, trying to overcome his growing sleepiness. He hears footsteps and the creaking of oak floorboards downstairs. Brother Avis ascends, clumsily carrying an armful of old scrolls from the archive. The Sanator throws the pile of withered paper on the table, and Winfred, who chose a bad time to yawn, inhales a cloud of stirred-up dust and sneezes loudly. Look what you are doing, complains the executor, wiping his nose with the glove that still smells of bonfire. What? Avis, wearing a mask, is seemingly unperturbed. Winfred, how we stretch the scrolls? The executor simply looks at him silently. We have to spread out the maps. Winfred puts a hand to his ear and leans over to his colleague, pretending to be straining to hear. Speak clearly. I said. What? I can't hear anything. Finally, the Senator rips off his mask and shouts in his high-pitched voice, no longer reverberating from the inside of the heavy beak. Damn it, Winfred! Are you doing this on purpose? Smiling, Winfred spreads his hands in a peaceful gesture. Brother, have I ever lied to you? Take off your crow head more often, and you won't know where to hide from the wenches. Embarrassed, Avis puts his mask back on immediately, flipping numerous fasteners and stretching a creaky leather strap. The executor sighs. Do you really have to wear that thing all the time? I am a Sanator. Nonsense! You're the only doctor in town who pretends to be a bird all the time, both when necessary and when not. Or are you afraid of getting sick? I've heard there are such... The executor twists his face, struggling to remember the proper word. Hobbyists? But Winfred understands the true reasons. It's not easy to win respect and recognition in the city when your appearance is at odds with the generally accepted idea of what the brothers of St. Almo look like, or rather, what they should look like, in line with all the tales and superstitions. He decides to change the subject. Well, why does Rhaegar need these maps all of a sudden, at this hour no less? Avis stumbles for a moment. He did not say. How come? I don't know. He wasn't himself since this morning, as if something had happened. I see. He was looking completely past me. Do you remember the Hausenberg plague? The one that happened 5 years ago? He was there. He and Richard. Winfred rubs his chin thoughtfully, but suddenly he laughs out loud, addressing his confer with a deliberate mocking. Or maybe he just couldn't hear you. Take off the beak. When the plague will strike, you'll be the first scrambling to wear the same one. The executor immediately makes a protective gesture and smacks his colleague upside the head. Ow, Winfred! Don't you jinx us! Once again serious, Winfred approaches the window and gazes thoughtfully into the distance, between the steeples and weather vanes, into the cold, thickening darkness. He stares at the lights dying in the windows for a long time, at the Roosdant, wrapped up in the evening fog, then says barely audibly, Just what we needed. "2 days left until the epidemic. The gingerbread quarter of Roosdant doesn't smell of gingerbread at all. It may disappoint the few guests of this northern outpost, but it's merely the dwelling place of the wealthy merchants, petty nobles wary of debauchery, and prosperous artisans. In short, The place is boring and mediocre, almost the same found in most Tentarian towns, spread from the frozen taiga to the Milky Mountains. Today, several houses surround a well-kept courtyard, which is unusually crowded, and exorcist brothers finish placing the seals on the doors of rich citizens. Brother Raiga and Grand Exorcist of Rusdant stands aside and oversees the work of his subordinates, occasionally correcting them and giving instructions. Soon, only one door is left. Raiga raises his hand and sternly says to the young brother, diligently drawing the lines of the last seal, "Draw more smoothly. I think of this as the door to your own house." Despite the strict tone, Raiga is not too angry at the negligence of his subordinates. The local who paid for the seals for himself and his neighbours is just an odd fellow. Superstitious fears sometimes pushes citizens to very eccentric acts, and yet the Brotherhood honours its reputation. They will place the seals in such a way that no spirits, tenebres, or even Male Emilia herself may step inside these walls. Wait, Milia? That's the one that was pushing the spirit back, right? The soul. The beast with the many arms, that's who that was. Many years have passed since Raiga had put on the crow mask, but surging memories of those dark days worry him, giving rise to a vague anxiety in his soul. So clearly something is going on at the minute that's tripping people off that there is going to be some kind of problem soon, right? I mean, why else would they be so cautious that they've paid for seals on all the neighbours as well? He thoughtfully strokes the tip of the beak on his white mask, covered with patterns of the seal, and the memories instantly explode in a cascade of monstrous images. Houses burning like giant bonfires, parades of white crosses drawn in chalk on hastily boarded doors and shutters, the howl of a fiery storm devouring plague-infected quarters, and the smell that even incense and spicy herbs stuffed into his masked beak cannot kill. Sickening and sweet, bitter, burning the throat, he will remember it forever, even if the sleeper has mercy on him and all of the images suddenly fade. The exorcist shudders and shakes his head, wishing to rid himself of the evil thoughts. He will not let fear take hold of him, not now, not ever. Isolated cases of a disease not yet studied are no reason to announce the beginning of an epidemic. Yet, he should send a raven to Dolleberg, just in case. With his peripheral vision, Raiga notices movement and turns his head. At one of the doors, a freckled girl of about 8 years old is enthusiastically rubbing at the freshly created seal. "Hey! Scram!" The girl notices Raiga and sticks out her tongue in response, chuckling. The Grand Exorcist is not irritated. The seals cannot be destroyed that easily. Neither can the palm erase them, nor a chisel chip them, nor even the endless northern showers in cold October wash them away. The brothers of St. Alma alone know their secrets. But feeling that the shadows stretched out by the midday sun has stirred a bit, Raiga realizes that it is his time to teach the wretch a lesson of respect for the Brotherhood, a lesson that all good people of Tantaria must learn sooner or later. "You're a little prankster!" Raiga takes off and strides towards the girl, but she squeals and brushes away. The exorcist follows her into the alley under the arch and strides faster. Very soon he catches the mischievous girl in the narrow and stuffy dead end. Wait, is this meant to be the good guy? Because him chasing a little girl is very much terrifying. Gotcha! Looking back at the approaching brother, the girl frantically bangs her tiny fists on a door upon which the seal is already whitening. Finally, the door swings open and the frightened child rushes to safety under the skirt of a woman who appears in the doorway. Weiger looks up and recognizes the pale Brogane. That, he recalls, must be her name. The woman timidly moves away and quietly, as if she herself is somehow guilty, asks, "What did she do, good brother? My little birdie?" The exorcist softens his look, but his tone is strict. "Your birdie tried to erase the seals." Fru Green spanks the girl right through the fabric of her emerald dress and hoofs. "You're completely out of control, little brat," she then asks the Grand Exorcist in an ingrating tone. "Don't punish her, for the sleeper's sake. I'll do it myself. Please don't, good brother." Weiger just shrugs it off and is about to leave, but Fru Gain looks a bit and askance adds, "And these drawings? To be honest, we never asked Heinrich to deface our doors. They're made from solid Encoria wood, not forged from old pipes like his own." "Drawings?" The exorcist throws his hands up in indignation and responds with bitter irony. "Oh, so the door is defaced? Well, as you wish, I'll order my men to erase the seal immediately. If you prefer the visits of spirits, that's your choice, and may the sleeper keep you safe." Weiger barely manages to turn around when the woman, already breaking into tears, grabs him by the edge of his cloak, terrified. "Oh, forgive my ignorance. I didn't know. Don't erase it." For a few moments, the exorcist looks into Fru Gray's wet, wide-open eyes. Perhaps his words were a bit excessive. "Farewell," he says. "Sleeper bless you, good brother." Upon leaving, Weiger hears the door bolt click, and behind it, Fru Gain starts scolding the child. Only now does he allow himself to smile slightly underneath his mask. The exorcist glances at his shadow, stretched out by the dim northern sun, and it seems to tremble, chuckling in response. "Are you trying to imply that he's just a big softy at heart? Big softy with a little bit of a temper." One day left until the epidemic. Despite the early hour, the street is empty and lifeless. Uneasy anticipation grips the whole area. It bristles with the teeth of lowered gratings and the shields of locked shutters. There are no voices, only the wind rustles carelessly with yellow whirlwinds of dust and fallen leaves. Avis feels many frightened eyes are watching him. All of them expect something from him, rely on him. Not only on him, on all the brothers. And Avis becomes ashamed that their hopes are beyond the Brotherhood's abilities. Everyone in the fortress is waiting for a crow from Dorlenberg, as if the letter could stop the number of the sick growing every day. Oh, okay, so that's the cause for concern already, that people are already sick. That makes sense. "I bet they'll write something like, 'We recommend a quarantine and harsh measures,'" Avis thinks with a bitter smile. He is not afraid of the scale of a possible epidemic, an unknown disease. That is what's scary. Meanwhile, the city becomes dangerous. While pious citizens sit in their homes, others less pious are out on the streets of Rusland. If the Brotherhood starts doing badly, a riot is inevitable. Very soon he will not risk walking the streets alone. Avis walks into another alley. The echo of his steps reflects from the walls, dissolving into the damp gloom. Only one has left. Once he checks it, his round is over. The Sanator knocks with a rusty door knocker and asks the usual question, trying to speak as low as possible. "Good citizens, is everyone healthy?" "We're alive," a voice responds, muffled by the thick door. Not too detailed, but Avis does not need more. Sick people would surely beg for help. He is not mad at those who have not opened the door for him. The Sanator leaves, happy with the realization that there will be no more victims on this shift. But how long will this last? Distracted by gloomy thoughts, he steps on something and feels an unpleasant crunch under his feet. Avis lowers his gaze, and cold sweat covers his forehead. Well, that's clearly the sign of the epidemic then. I mean, I know I promote the death of the birds and the fish, but mass exodus of birds is not a good thing, especially when people are already getting sick. On the ground, there are dead birds, all covered in blood. What in the tendrils? Composing himself, the Sanator carefully examines the birds, not daring to bow his head too low. I just thought, but would the epidemic really cause them to bleed like this? Because this is almost like they've been shot or stabbed or something. The amount of blood there. Pigeons, crows, all torn crosswise. He looks around in haste, suppressing a quick flash of fear. There is no one around, only the wind wails mournfully against the creaky weather vanes and ripples through sun-bleached flags. He shifts his gaze, and for a moment, it seems to him that something is hanging from the weather vane. A shining scarlet ribbon soars in the wind, pulsing, wriggling, as if it were alive. Avis steps back in disbelief and frantically rubs the red glass lenses of the crow mask on with his palm. When he opens his eyes again, the teasing scarlet ribbon is nowhere in sight. Was it a vision? Indeed, he hardly slept that night. He and Weiger marked infected houses on the map with every pin he put down. Weiger changed his expression but remained stubbornly silent in response to questions. "We'll see after the autopsy," Weiger kept repeating, as if reassuring not Avis but himself. "For now, this is mere speculation. The infection might be spreading from underground." "Is this?" Stops his thought and hastily signs himself with a protective gesture. Quickly, to the fortress. "Oh, it's growing!" And now, we've reached the epidemic. Oh, and there was a very foreboding laugh. Hey, well, see, not all birds died. Why have they got red eyes? The hours just before dawn are the quietest. Carriage wheels aren't rattling on the pavement, and neighborhood goodwives aren't gossiping while leaning out their windows. Even the birds sound too timid as they start their morning songs. Only a few windows, those of the rich people's houses, are lit with lamplight. The servants in there tiptoe around quietly, cooking breakfast and cleaning their master's clothes. And then the dawn rises in the east, and gentle sunlight paints the pavement, wet from the morning dew, gold and pink. A new day has come. People's voices and the creak of shutters can be heard over the light-hearted chirping of the birds. The shutters open one after the other, like the wooden eyelids of the town, letting the warm sunlight in. A cold draft is creeping through the cracks in the window frame. Richard Murdoch cringes as he tries to find a warm spot on his narrow bed. Sleep clings to his eyelids with his soft fingers, warms his temples, and begs him to stay for a minute or two. Don't listen to the morning drowse. You will be cheated. The trickster will steal your morning freshness and vanish, leaving you with a heavy head and a bad mood. Richard gets out of bed, shakes off his drowsiness, and puts on his clothes while listening to the old Martha clinking the dishes downstairs. While waiting for his breakfast, he looks out at the window, casually counting the plumes of smoke billowing up towards the sky. The wind smells of dampness and burnt leaves, the usual autumnal fragrance, yet something in it feels off. A timid knock on the door comes at last. Martha's fear used to hurt him, and it took him some time to understand and forgive the commoner's attitude. His breakfast is waiting behind the door. There is warm bread and sliced cheese, a boiled egg, some greens, garlic, and a mug of steaming herbal infusion. A simple, homely meal, hardly fit for a man of his standing, but Richard always puts his habits before his status. Sipping the flavoursome drink, Richard grins as he recalls his argument with the housekeeper. For quite a while, the poor woman simply refused to realise that starting a new day with a pint of beer is against his grain, and tried to wine and dine him properly. He had to coldly reprimand her, but the fresh, minty aftertaste and the tranquil vigour were worth it. Naturally, he had to collect and prepare the herbs himself. Even the local herbalists, whom one would expect to be well versed in their craft, turned out to be rather ignorant when it came to something other than laxatives and hangover remedies. If it weren't for the greenhouses of the Brotherhood Fortress and his own foraging in the forest, Richard would have long forgotten the taste of his favourite cordial. After finishing his breakfast, Richard heads downstairs and out into the inner yard. Here, in a rickety shed, covered in the shadows of a sprawling old apple tree, is where he keeps his workwear. It's not quite so easy to put it on every day. The first thing he puts on is a greasy ointment, which has a slightly swampy odour to it. Richard rubs it on his wrists, knees and neck, and it's a fairly extravagant concoction, but an effective one. The smell of this ointment is repulsive to the blood-sucking insects. After that, with the greatest precautions, the soft leather gauntlets are being put on, well worn with years of labour. Wide, flared cuffs make them look like the wingtips of a strange bird. Now, all that remains to do is pull on his high boots, to don and gird a heavy robe smelling of tar, and of course, to put on his mask. This heavy white mask with reddish lenses over the eyes is stuffed with herbs: basil, thyme, garlic, rosemary, pepper, mint, marjoram, all finely chopped and tightly packed inside. The smell is so strong that an unprepared person would start feeling dizzy at once. I was going to say, that sounds massively overwhelming. I mean, especially because some of them are contradictory scents, aren't they? I mean, like garlic and mint. But then again, would you rather have the overpowering smell of basil or the smell of death? A price he has to pay, a minor one compared to all he has to do. All those devoted to this craft have to. Oh, look at us! We are absolutely adorable! This has just reminded me of the Not Involved visual novel I read, which had also a little tiny adorable plague doctor in it as well. I highly recommend, I enjoyed. Nay, Richard is not a jester nor a sleeper forbid, cesspit cleaner. The gleaming glasses and the heavy beak full of incense speak for themselves. The Sanator brother Richard Murdoch likes to call himself a soldier, and his battlefield lies within the cities and villages of Tartaria, his enemies the invisible and ruthless plagues that harvest human lives year by year. Many would think of him otherwise, though. The Sanator walks down the street and people move aside, frightened, not wishing to be touched even by his shadow, according to local superstition, which the Brotherhood of St. Elmo had been unsuccessful in eradicating. The shadow of a hangman, a gravedigger or a Sanator couldn't give disease to sinful people, but who can claim to be without sin these days? Even without personally killing people, in the eyes of the terrorized citizens, Richard was both the sinner and the saint. He would verify the verdicts of fate and sign them, marking doors by chalk, the sign of the cross upon them. His hands would cure, but they would also stained with blood, and his clothes reeked of smoke. It was not he who would throw a torch into one's sickbed, who would nail down doors and windows, who would wheel piles of corpses away on a creaky cart in order to burn them. But still, through the red lenses of his mask, he could see the suffering of those visited by Sanators. Large families or singletons, rich and poor alike, None saw mercy from pestilence or from Richard. He had been offered money, but he had never taken it. He had been begged, but always remained silent. He had been cursed, but would simply move on to the next house. Richard is a Sanator, a plague doctor. Such is the fee his job exacts. Today, unfortunately, more mournful labourers are waiting for him. A few days ago, a sick man was found on Merchant's Lane, dying from bloody gashes on his neck, belly and chest. His skin was cracking, the ichor was mixed with blood oozed from his body, staining his clothes and adorning them like a horrible scarlet scarf. Since then, 17 more citizens have fallen ill, and the quarter has been quarantined. At the end of the street, before the entrance to the formerly clean and bright gingerbread quarter, the Sanator is greeted by a rude, slapdash barricade that looks as if it were built by the rabble-rousers piling up junk to incite the people. There are planks, barrels, and even a single cartwheel. Some wicked troublemaker had hung a dirty black cloth over it, and now it's billowing in the wind like a cursed banner of infamy. This time, it was not the rioters who had built the defences, but some negligent guardsmen who hadn't bothered to build a decent barricade. This was easy to understand, though, as boards and stones could rarely stop the plague, especially given the nighttime guests, the morticians carting the tarry sacks away, and the Sanators taking the sick to the infirmary. The guards' halberds are there to curb the marauders' avidity, nothing more. Two men are waiting for Richard right at the barricade. The small, skinny man is Brother Avis, in wondrous clean clothes, not at all stained with blood. The other, who seems even bigger next to his partner, is Brother Winfred, an executor with a bludgeon and a short sword on his belt. Richard touches the brim of his hat in his greeting and hurriedly asks the main question that had been nagging him for several days. Any response from Dorlenberg? The Raven returned before the dawn. Nothing reassuring. The malady is unknown. They recommend quarantine and rigorous measures. The Sanator swings his hand resentfully, as if to grab the throat of the ones giving such orders. If we can't stop it within a week, Rusdant will be closed. Damn it! How can we stop an unknown plague in only a week? And what of the sick? How was the night?
3 died, and those ridiculous rumours about the Scarlet Scarf are spreading again. People say they've seen it on some houses.
Avis stops, then nervously shudders and moves his beak sideways, momentarily resembling a bird even more.
It's strange, but today, it seemed for a moment that there was something hanging from the weather vane.
It's just your fatigue, Avis. Get some rest. We've got an autopsy tonight.
Richard, do check those houses, just in case. The Wolders, the Hinds, the Rigmers. You know where they live?
Richard nods in agreement, and the tip of his beak swings along with the confer's words. Remind me about the Hinds? Their house is up the street, on the left. It's the one with the tiger violets on the windowsill. All right, Avis, we should get going. Winfred starts to turn away, but stops, remembering something. By the way, Richard, are you armed? As usual, is there anything to be aware of out there? Avis said he'd seen some marauders, but they fled. The guards wouldn't say anything.
I wonder if they are the same side. The houses here are filled with valuables.
Richard shrugs. The threat seems insubstantial to him. I don't think they'd dare attack a brother. Cornered rats bite, but personally, I don't believe in marauders that much.
Winfred, do I look like a liar to you?
Calm down, Avis. I mean, the ones you saw might not be human. The Senator hastily makes a protective sign.
Sleeper forbid! Better not even think that it could be the one hanging out the scarves.
a marauder or spirit is all the same. Both spread the disease. Anyway, it should all be clear tonight. Winfried lifts his hands in dismay, and it seems like he's grinning under the mask. See you at the fortress.
May the sleeper help you.
The brethren leave, and Richard follows the path, getting across the barricade and entering the plague's domain. He walks past guardsmen playing dice in front of two smoky, pungent fires, and turns onto the lane. This is a shortcut to the houses marked with a mysterious scarlet ribbon, and Richard doesn't want to frighten the people who are trapped near the plague with his appearance. The streets that used to be so boisterous are now silent. Everything has ground to a halt in nervous expectation, and only the blithesome wind squeaks the weather vanes while throwing fallen leaves underneath Richard's feet. As if charmed by his unnatural silence, the Sanator moves quieter, but his steps are still echoing in the soggy twilight of the arcade. He'd be very surprised to meet someone else here. Oh, and just as you said it, Richard stops for a moment, unable to believe his own eyes. In the narrow lane, a girl is playing with the leaves. Her bare feet and generously patched clothes betray her as a street urchin. How did she even manage to find such a unsuitable playground? Hearing Richard's steps, she looks up, but doesn't even flinch. Could it be that no one has bothered to tell her the rumors about the Sanator's shadow?
Morning, Crowman. What a big nose you've got.
What are you doing here, little girl? Were you begging here when the streets were cordoned off? Despite Richard's formidable looks and his unfriendly tone, the waif doesn't seem to be afraid.
I'm hiding. It's quiet and comfy here. Are your friends gone? Can I come with you instead?
It's a tainted place, and I'm visiting the dying. It's dangerous. What's your name? Have you got a place to stay until the end of quarantine? Does she even know the word quarantine? Well, regardless, her mournful tone sounds pretty convincing.
Where could I stay? The hiding spots are scary. The Scarifer lurks around there. Syl would rather go with you. Crow, please.
It's probably a bad idea, but I want to do it anyway. Let's let Syl follow us. Inwardly appreciating the waif's courage, Richard asks her sternly, "Aren't you afraid of catching the plague? What if I touch you with my shadow?"
Keep your shadow to yourself, Crow. What should I be afraid of? It would be worse if I stay alone and walk around the houses out of boredom.
It really should spank you. But how can I lay a hand on such a baby? Richard throws his arms, thinking to himself for a moment before continuing. Sleeper, forgive you. Let's go then. But don't follow me into the houses, or I'll get angry.
All right. I'll sit on the doorstep. And why is it you can go in but I can't?
There's no spare crowhead for you. Sorry. The Sanator's joke doesn't seem to have impact. The waif apparently takes it at face value.
I don't want a crow's head. Would it save you though? You think the Scarifer will be scared?
He must be scared of somebody, so why not us? We are the enemies of those like him, and our enmity has no quarter.
So the Scarifer's not alone? Whoa, that's scary. Don't stay inside for too long. What if they all come here at once?
Richard grunts skeptically, thinking to himself that it would be too easy. What nonsense, all at once? Honestly, I don't believe there's even one.
So you don't. Well, let's go then. He might show himself to you.
Okay, so where do we want to go? Walder's house, Hein's house, or Wigmar's? I want to go to Wigmar's, just because it's fun to say Wigmar. A chalk-drawn cross can be seen on the door from afar, marking the house emptied by the plague. Richard stops at the entrance, pondering the situation. What could a scarlet scarf on an already death-marked house mean? Maybe someone was hiding inside and has now become ill?
Have you guys been here yet? Left someone behind?
No, we never do that. They won't board up until the healthy ones. Maybe we got the wrong house.
It's not wrong. Look, the scratches on the door are fresh, not from nails.
The waif's remark catches the Sanator off guard. Until the last moment, he hadn't wanted to believe that someone really would go around, stealing things from the infected quarter. Where? Oh, those stupid people! The boards used by the morticians to close up the door have been surreptitiously detached. No need to guess who it could be. The marauders. Those fools wishing to steal valuables from infected houses, counting on dumb luck. You'd better hide, girl. Who knows what's on their minds now? They may still be in there.
And you, Crow? Call your brethren!
Those thieves could flee while I look for help. No, I won't back off. But you can run and call the guards. It seems the Sanator's courage does not boost Sal's confidence.
What if they kill you in there?
A man can die but once. I'm a brother, after all. We don't die that easy. Now run! The broken door creaks pitifully, letting the beak-faced doctor in. He has left his grip sack near the entrance, and now he holds his faithful cane in both hands, ready to meet the desperate marauders on the Scarfer himself. But these precautions prove quite unneeded. Richard can see a semi-supine figure on the open dresser. Nearby, an open sack with some belongings lies abandoned. Apparently, it won't be of use to the thief anymore. The Sanator approaches the wretch cautiously. The pool of blood around him indicates the man is surely dead. His face is twisted with deadly terror, and his pose shows that he was surprised by someone. But who could that be? The malady developed so rapidly that he could hardly sit up. The Sanator finds the candle end in the kitchen and carefully examines the body. Each day, the malady seems to grow more virulent, killing its victims even faster. And Richard knows that diseases don't normally work like this. At least, the ordinary diseases don't. After making sure that the dead bodies bear no signs of assault and that any accomplices have fled, the Sanator leaves the twice-cursed house. He must inform the brethren of the fortress. Maybe the acolytes will have time to prepare this body for the evening autopsy. Richard has no doubt that this must be done. Now he has to calm down the guards. Minute after minute passes, and there is still nobody on the street. No whistles, no clatter of rough boots on the pavement. Has something happened to the girl? Has she been caught? The waif is alive and apparently sound. She sits in the same lane where Richard found her the first time, her face in her knees, and she seems to be sobbing. Could the guards have offended the waif? Certainly, one could have pushed her with their butt end of the spear, but could be simpler? No one would intercede for her, and she can't protect herself. Hearing Richard's steps, she raises her eyes and smiles timidly. She's glad to see the Sanator is one piece. Hey, you alright? Why didn't the guards come? Sil answers, swallowing her tears and trying to smile.
Your guards are fools. They didn't even listen to me. But you're alive. Alive!
Of course I'm alive. Those guys have already fled, at least some of them.
And those who didn't?
One's lying in there. We'll collect him for autopsy by the evening. Well, don't repeat his mistakes. Don't go into the houses. It seems the incident has impressed her enough to stop joking around.
No, I won't. It's better outside.
The Sanator looks at the waif's patched clothes and realizes that he must do something for her. Not so many little girls can confront him like that after all. You'll be really cold at night. I'll bring you something to eat.
Don't trouble yourself, kind crow. You have a lot going on anyway. Good people will feed me as always.
As long as the quarter is quarantined, Syl can't get out. Should he make sure that she won't be driven out from whatever shelter she might find? Yes, perhaps. Later. If that's so, then may the sleeper save you.
May he save you, Crow.
Richard goes to the guards' outpost, about to tell them off for neglecting their duties. It's one thing to play dice when the streets are quiet, but it's quite another to drive away a child who's asking for help, not to mention the interests of the Brotherhood, which are being affected too. But his anger is met with incomprehension. Richard chafes and rubs the pavement with a stick. Guards just stare at each other and shrug their shoulders. From the start of the morning, there was not a soul on the streets. No waifs, no little girls calling for help. The Sanator wouldn't believe them at a different time, but now he backs off. The guards seem not to be lying. Could the girl have lost her courage and just lied to him about coming up to the guards? She indeed might have. Most likely the poor thing was sitting there, blaming herself for cowardice, thinking that the Sanator might get killed because of her. Well, all's well that ends well. He shouldn't return to scold her, should he? Richard must report back to the fortress before continuing vain labours at the hospital. More fruitless efforts to retain their lives trickling from the dying bodies, trying again and again, failing to again and again until the sun hides behind the pointy roofs, and the cool breeze of the evening brings a short respite to the patients desperately gasping for air. Oh, autopsies. Is it just me, or does it? This is an entirely mechanical autopsy room. Twilight forever reigned under the dank mortuary's vaulting. Even at the brightest noon, the sun rays hardly pierced the narrow windows or the thick stone walls. Smoky, tarry torches attempted to bring in the light, all in vain, as they were only blackening the mildewed stones, weeping with condensation. But how it would all change on a moonlit night. This room was built ages ago, in the times of Allure, when there was no Tentaria and no human cities. Now, a bright ray of light falls right in the middle of the hall, gathered by the system of mirrors cunningly hidden inside the walls. It is unusually crowded here today. A number of figures in official Sanator outfits surround a low marble pedestal where a body lies, its arms limply spread, prepared for autopsy by the attendant morticians. The body looks even whiter in the moonlight, resembling a marble statue, and the scarlet, cracked wounds look even more natural upon it. The St. Elmo brothers are talking quietly, nodding to each other with their heavy beaks. Their voices merge with the crackling torches, filling the room with a low hum, like a disturbed beehive. Today, all who gathered are one way or another involved in the unfolding war with the epidemic. Yet there comes, in the moonlight, the cold gleam of surgical knife, and all conversation abates, giving way to the firm, confident voice of the dissector, leading the autopsy. The subject is male, about 25 years old. A regular build, emaciated. Livers mortis on the face, clavicle, and internal thigh surfaces. The neck, chest, and abdomen are covered by characteristic cracks inherent to the current epidemic. Presumed cause of death, extensive inner hemorrhage. Pay attention to the face. Silence, please. Note the facial expression of abject horror, possibly pre-existed hallucinations. Commencing sectio traversalis. The blade silently slides through the body, opening it like horrible flesh bud. The dissector dilates the cut. He bends down to the corpse, nearly touching it with his beak. as if he's going to feast on the remnants like real crows do. Cracks inherent of the disease can be observed on the viscera. 2. Multiple lesions on the stomach and bowel. Solar plexus pulverized.
Solar plexus? Isn't that like center of the chest kind of area?
I'm not big on the anatomy. All I know is that you can get punched in the solar plexus, right? And it really hurts. The voice of the dissector gets drowned out by the risking ruckus. The Sanators simply can't contain themselves. Ordinary maladies cannot kill so fast. What formerly was but a guess to be proven is now presented to everyone in a clear, unambiguous manner. Disruption of the heart bursa, heart wall. Quarantine the town immediately. Send word. We must return all those who left in the past few weeks. Is the plague spirit, the quadrant. The mortuary fills with disturbed voices, sounds of footsteps, and the rustle of cloths. Brothers hurry to give orders that may ruin hundreds of lives, but save thousands. The orders are followed by the foreboding words, the spirit, the quadrant. The entire region will be roused. Outposts of crossbowmen will block the roads, and both mounted and foot patrols will move along the forest paths. No one will leave Roostrant until the spirit claims its own. Beak-headed figures disappear through the dark archways, till a lone dissector remains by the bodies, continuing to open the flesh, extracting the answers to the malady. For what point would there be in tending the ill without fully knowing the cause? But there may be a hint in the way the quadrat kills, a secret which will lead the brothers to their target. An exhausted Sanator returns home well past midnight. So much has been done, and only the sleeper knows if they've missed something important. Have they missed the way? The chance to save Rustant from ruin? In the weak light of an oil lamp, Richard stays motionless, for a moment in the dimly lit, dusty shed, trying to calm his fearful heart. Breathe in, breathe out. Now that his hands are trembling no more, he can take off the heavy clothes steadily, to avoid touching the wet, glossy tar. It doesn't matter that the acolytes have washed the plague off him at the fortress. Doesn't matter that the scarlet scarf is not passed by touch. The rules must be followed. No Sanatar knows how many times his life has been saved from the instructions that have become his second nature, but a violation of these instructions kills, and it kills suddenly. The night chill makes him shiver after the heavy humid suit, but Richard does not hurry into the house. Sniffling from the cold, he washes off the remnants of the protective ointment, splashing out the rainwater onto the grass. His feet ache from tiredness, making him get to bed as soon as possible and fall asleep. And even when the Sanator falls on the pitifully creaking bed, he cannot afford a long rest. This night, he has to talk to the shadow, to his faithful anger. She might notice something he's missing. The dream meets Richard with the familiar twilight, with a maze of walls and aisles branching out into a boundless space. The shapes of inner dwellers slither on the verge of visibility. One only has to concentrate, and the nocturnals will hide from the gaze that destroys their bodies, too fragile in their shapelessness. And to think that once he was totally unable to find his way here, Richard moves through the intricate passages of the inner labyrinth towards the light and the tinkling of bells. Anger's chambers lay deep, and the Sanatar has time to think about the questions he wants to ask the wayward shadow. What to say, and what to pass over in silence. Despite their consanguinity, both have their secrets and their own hidden agendas. Okay, so I'm guessing Anger was not the white soulless one, right? The shadow's Kankail has no doors, but he stopped at the entrance of usual, asking for permission to enter with a mere glance. Anger likes his little courtesy
and Richard could afford it. The shadow meets him as she often would, turning aside resentfully with her hands in heavy chains, defiantly exposed. Richard can see a mischievous sparkle in her eyes as she is reading the reaction of her guest. All is well. Are you going to shame me again, Anga? The shadow casts an eye on him, full of hidden hope, and her chains tinkle like little bells. Are you trying to reassure me again, Richard? Calm me down. Will you stand before me with the very key to my chains in your hands? What an actress! If only I'd unweaved the seals, we'd swap our roles at once. What kind of chains are you preparing for me, Anga? Anga screws her face into a smile, magnetizing the Sanator with her promising gaze. I was never taught to love the wires. And what about you? Do you still heal those whose time is already measured and whose days are numbered? We will all be carried away by the wind someday, but it's not the reason to refuse salvation to those who can still be caught. The Senator's answers angers her. The shadow rises in her seat, as if trying to catch his shoulders and shake him in a desperate attempt to make her point. They loathe you, blind man. Why are you so naive? They tremble when they see your cloak. They shut their doors and shutters. They're afraid to touch your very shadow. I wouldn't blame them for the latter, though. I mean, yeah, the shadow did try to eat the grandmother. Oops. Anga twitches as if she was slapped. She subsides and freezes. Then, with an imperceptible movement, she slides out from her chained body, leaving it seated like a gutless puppet, reappearing so close that Richard feels the heat of her breath. The Senator doesn't budge. Long past are the times when the shadow's tricks could frighten him or catch him off guard. Whatever Anga does, the key from her chains is always firmly held in his fist. Possessing it means both bliss and torment, and Richard doesn't know whether he will be able to maintain self-control until his very end. Anga whispers, her lips touch Richard's ear, and her words touch his heart with anguish. Say you came here just for me. Say you have no questions for me today. He pretends he could be cold. He has no right to fall for her tricks. Do you remember my promise, never to lie to you? I keep my word. Your words cut deeper than your knives, Richard. Are you suffering because of a stranger's troubles again? Trying to save those who have imprisoned my sisters? Look at it from a different angle. Doesn't my help delay their fall into the sea? Where does the doomed one suffer more? On the scaffold or in a prison? Dying in his thoughts again and again? Richard speaks softly, and he is adamant under his softness. They are asleep, Anga. Asleep. Your awakening is an exception. We've discussed this before. Anga sighs theatrically and abruptly turns away, slapping his face with her hair. I can't even have a talk with you. Aspen, don't keep me in suspense. Richard sighs tiredly and sits down by the wall, starting his story. The memory obligingly awakens the day's earlier happenings, the barricade, the waif, living the dead houses, the sick, the hospital, the autopsy. The words flow, and a charmed Anga listens to the story about the world she wishes so much to get into one day. I am fraught with doubt, Anga. It feels like I'm missing a detail, something irritating like an eye floater. Maybe you can catch something I couldn't. Your doubts are not unreasonable. Today you touched upon something very important for this plague. You did something meaningful. A new path between our dream and the fourth house wouldn't have appeared without reason. The disease walks around, scampering about your feet like a greyhound. Beware, don't miss the moment when she pounces to dig her teeth into your throat. Wait, or maybe it's the waif? Me letting her come with us, is that what's opened the alternate path? She wants to say more, stretches out her hand to him, but he awakens and knock at the door, fast, frightened. Knock, 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 knock. His head aches. The shade sleep doesn't let the body rest. One of the dues that must be paid for an intimate interaction with other planes of reality. Richard lingers, gathering himself up to find out what the persistent guest wants. He presses his cold fingers to his temples, driving off the ache for a time. What do you want? The Sanator knows the answer already. Half awake, he mistook the bow tolling outside for the aftershocks of his night visions. Its slow, hollow clangs echo in his heart. A frightened voice behind the door only confirms his fears. The plague is spreading, Brother Sanator. The fortress is shut. The central quarters are closed off by the quarantine cordons. All doctors who aren't ill yet are summoned. You aren't ill, are you? I'm coming. Brush off already. There is no food behind the door. Is old Martha ill, or has she fled, hoping to hide from the march of the pestilence? That doesn't matter. He'll have to find time to eat later. Now, he must hurry. It isn't as bad as the messenger said. Soon Rustant will be overtaken with panic and chaos. Richard knows that the ravens carrying grim orders from the closed fortress are flying to the local settlements. Even the brothers can't keep the citizens within the stone trap of the town walls. They would still have nowhere to run. The street is abandoned and lifeless. The shutters are firmly shut, the doors are closed, but the Sanator feels scratched by dozens of frightened stares through the sun-dry cracks in the narrow attic windows. And all the more unexpected is a diminutive shape of a lonely waif, Syl, trudging towards him. Syl looks tired and weak, even more pitiable than yesterday. Her rags are tainted with something, and her eyes shine feverishly. She peers at the houses tensely, as if looking for something, and when she sees Richard, she greets him with a wave of her hand. Crow, you here again? And you're still wandering about? Sleeper's eyes, my dear. Aren't you sap-headed? Look around, the pestilence is here. Someone could go mad with fear and harm you somehow. This rather innocent remark causes a storm of emotions in Syl. She raises her hands as if pushing someone back and sniffles pitifully, clenching her fists and holding them near her lips. I feel, you know what? I feel like we've already committed to helping her, so we'll take care of Syl. The Sanator stands in front of Syl at a loss, amazed by his own thoughts. What is the current price of this white life after all? How many little girls are suffocating in pain now, trying to breathe in a way that won't disturb the horrible scarlet scarf marks? But the look of Syl, who's nearly crying, doesn't let him just go away. What can he do in town after all? Must he put to sleep the few more scores of citizens? All will be in vain. The Brotherhood is losing this battle, so why shouldn't they just let the scarf finish it? He must care for the living, not for the dead, even if the dead can still move and breathe. Richard gathers his thoughts and speaks kindly, trying to calm Syl down. If you have nowhere to go, you can live with me for a while. We'll find a place for you after the plague, so you'll be all right. She looks at him mistrustfully, as if gauging his sincerity, and then asks quietly, Can I really? Are you trying to trick me, Crow? You seem to think I have some incident plans. This suggestion somehow makes Syl smile. No way, you could. If you were one of those, you'd have tried to do it all yesterday. Do you even know what you're talking about? You should be ashamed to ask a woman about those things, Crow. Well, where is your home? Richard wants to scold her, but stops. The streets make children age fast. It's better not to think about it. You're calling yourself a woman, Pimple. Better stay quiet and follow me.
I'm coming. Just don't get angry.
Sil waits patiently for Richard while he takes off the outfit, which has had no time to warm up on him. She has calmed down and cheered up a bit after his invitation, but is still sniffling, either from the cold or swallowing the tears that remained hidden.
You look different without your beak, Crow.
Are you surprised? We're all humans, even if we wear masks. She thinks about it for a few moments, only answering Richard after a while.
All humans? Yeah, maybe. Are you cold, perhaps?
Ask the girl standing barefoot on cold stone. Come in, it's warm inside. Perching on a chair, Sil looks around Richard's room with interest, but doesn't touch anything. Meanwhile, Richard rummages downstairs, collecting the food left in the house on a tray. Soon he appears in the doorway, carrying a simple breakfast, bread, cheese, and a jar of honey he found in the cellar. The pot is heating, so we'll drink something hot soon. Do have a bite. Sil turns aside, answering quietly.
I don't want.
Are you ill? How could it be that you don't want to eat?
I've been fed.
Wait. I am now suspicious. Should I not have let Sil inside? I mean, Sil is clearly not human, right? Don't be shy, come on. Here's some honey. Take as much as you'd like. It's strange, but here at Richard's, she rapidly becomes serious and withdrawn, like an animal caught in a cage.
You're a good man, Crow. I shouldn't have come to you.
Nonsense, you can eat later. You'll surely want to. Richard sits on his bed, stretching his tired legs and leaning against the warm wall. His eyelids are getting heavy, but falling asleep without deciding where to put up Sil would be an unforgivable weakness. She is just sitting there, looking at him, not willing to touch the food. What has she seen in the cruel backyards of the town? Why is she acting so strangely? Your name is Sil, right? I'm Richard, brother of Richard Murdoch.
Yes, but I'll still call you Crow.
Richard raises his hands, peacefully smiling. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me. I'm not touchy. And how long have you lived on the streets?
No, I just can't find my home. I'm walking around, peeking in windows, asking.
You seem to be in deep water. Why didn't you go to the fortress or the town hall? Someone must be looking for you, no?
Why should I go there? I wasn't living there, and they're not looking for me. Perhaps they're even hiding from me.
Something doesn't add up. But could the waif have a strange story? She's not the first to be abandoned by their parents, too poor to feed their children. What kind of parents do you have that would hide from their own daughter? And the house is big, not a thing to hide in the pocket.
I have no parents, but I'll find my home anyway. I'll try hard.
Now is not the best time for searching. The town will soon go insane, and I can't ensure your safety then. Hopeless people are capable of doing horrible things. Sil frowns as if she's going to cry.
But I must keep looking, or I may run out of time.
Tell me about this house, Sil. Maybe I know it or have seen it.
The butcher's house. I was a servant there. Which one? My head is swimming. A tall one made of stone, with a heavy door and a big cellar.
Sil shudders at her memories. Richard's face hardens with each of her words, and he has a baleful gleam in his eye. He feels that he has come close to some terrible secret, a witness to something that needs his special brotherhood's attention. Don't be afraid. They won't find you here. It was they who mistreated you.
I'm not afraid anymore. Whatever they've done seems so immaterial now.
Then show me your neck.
Richard!
Sil looks up with a twinkle in her eye. smiling coyly as if about to accuse the Sanator of conspiring to possess her. But she's met with a cold stare, sharp and surgical knife, making her fall silent. And then slowly, as if ashamed, Sil pulls back the rags covering her neck. Wait. So yeah, she's the source of the Scarlet Scarf then? The carmine, bloody scarf flutters in the humanely imperceptible wind. The first who dares to break the oppressive silence is Sil.
You knew everything from the very beginning, didn't you?
The Senator's voice is calm again, calm in the same way as when he talks to Anga. But his manner is speaking his words gives Richard away. No, I could have guessed, but in the end I didn't. I wanted to believe.
In an orphan who's not afraid of your shadow.
Having a family is not our custom, but no one forbids taking apprentices. You could become a doctor, perhaps.
Are you going to try killing me? They say brothers can hurt spirits, just like the living.
Tell me everything. Even if we have to fight later, your tormentors will be punished. I want justice. Sil looks at him in amazement, as if hearing something unexpected. Oh, wait, so I get it. So I'm guessing at one point she might have been human then? So was she murdered by the person, the butcher, right? And then that's the Scarlet Scarf, her throat was cut, maybe. And now she's become a vengeful spirit? Is that what's going on here? Sil looks at him in amazement, as if hearing something unexpected.
Justice. Do you protect all good men of Tinteria?
Good men, Sil. Only good ones. Now tell me, time is running out. Sil tells him softly, sometimes pausing for a moment to hold her tears back.
I was born in a hamlet by the Morgehorn swamps. The butcher took me in as a servant. No, perhaps he bought me from my parents when I was very young. It seems even funny now to complain about the shouting, the beating, the cold, and the lumber room under the staircase. But it felt very hard and unfair at the time. Sometimes I saw guests coming in by the back door. They all went to the cellar and shut the door firmly. The guests went home in the morning, and they always lacked one or two. But what could I understand back then? The first time I tried to escape, the drunken master caught me near the lumber room and tried to rape me. And then the next day his wife burned my back with a poker. Then I learned what the guests were doing in the cellar. One of them left a knife inside me, and the night by night I loosened the stones in the old brickwork from where the breeze was blowing. When they caught me the second time, they wouldn't leave me alive. The guests were looking on as the butcher flayed me. I was still alive when he took hold of my bleeding neck and pulled my skin down to my feet in one move.
You were skinned alive? Oh, that's brutal. No wonder you want revenge. The Senator's voice is terrifying. Now he really sounds like the one that scares naughty children into lying. The cult of Ragazan, right under our nose at that. Sil, now your tormentor will learn much more about pain in the Executor's dungeons than you ever did.
No, Mistress Milliar made a deal with me. Each day of my search is paid with innocent blood. If I don't kill the butcher in a week, then I'll become a real Kandrat. Another one in the court of the Plague Maiden.
You know what? I feel bad for what Sil went to, and this butcher clearly deserves death, so we're going to agree to avenge Sil. And still, you came to me. Did you realize now the Plague Maiden tricked you? Sil turns aside, sobbing, and hides her face in the palms, not wanting to show her weakness.
I've forgotten their faces, and the house too. I had to forget everything, but I couldn't. Mella's caress awoke my memory.
Richard is not shouting, but his accusations fall in silence like heavy stones. You strike right and left, kill the innocents, aiming at your tormentors blindly. What have you become, Syl? What is the difference between you and the guests who came to torture you?
Kill me, Richard. I know you won't rest until my vengeance is done.
The Sanator knows that the Cardrat is crushed. The force leading her, vengeance, cannot withstand the unexpectedly awakened conscience. But he asks the last question to end it all. Do you really want it? You must know. If you have any doubts, my strike will banish you, but it won't kill.
I hate what I've become, brother. Thirst for revenge gnaws at my insides like a tireless worm. Take it from me, and I'll have no more reasons to exist.
Richard nods in agreement. A stiletto has been long hidden in his clenched hand. Its blade, forged from the metal fallen from the sky, can cut the bodies of those unafraid of the honest steel. Syl steps up to him, taking off her scarf. She wants to say something, perhaps to say goodbye, but the Sanator is merciful. The stiletto's sting goes through her without the slightest resistance, and an astonished expression stays on her face as it vanishes into thin air. Richard sits for a long time, squeezing the scarf so tightly that his knuckles go white. He shakes his head and gets up. He knows that all around the town his brethren are seeing how the blood stops leaking from the nether healing cracks on the bodies of the afflicted. Many of them will still die, and they won't be the last victims of the Scarlet Scarf. The butcher living in his big house with a deep cellar will be found soon. The next ones will be his guests, then those who sold them the children, those who taught them to rejoice in the pain of others. Until the last one of them falls, the Brotherhood does not unclench his jaws if they happen to latch onto someone's throat. The gears of the mechanism begin to spin. 1 week later, the executors found the butcher's house. He was denying everything, but a meeting with Richard broke him like a straw. He was executed in the square in front of a huge crowd, using one of the most spectacular methods, excommunication from the sleeper. But before that, he had given up his accomplices. A lot of them were rich and influential, but not sufficiently enough to stop the rotating flywheel of the Brotherhood. The strings extended every which way, pulling new persons in the light, and Richard was merciless. He left the Sanator's ranks and transferred to the executors, but even there his zeal began to seem suspicious with time. His men said that when he was alone, he would talk to the Scarlet Scarf, which he always had with him. 3 years later, Richard Murdoch went missing while chasing a group of cultist outlaws, all by himself in the quagmires of Zenmerch. Whether he perished in the Fetig Bog, was shot with an arrow from an ambush, or finally lost his sanity remains unknown. Though in the lost village of swamp dwellers, there is a strange tale about a hermit called the Scarlet Scarf, but that's a story for another time. You know what? I think I just got the best ending so far. I mean, I don't think it's beaten up. I mean, we got revenge for the poor waif, and we've killed all the ones that were part of this brutal cult. I mean, they skinned her alive. That's just brutal. There we go. I do not renounce Richard. Richard did a good thing. Richard, I'm proud of you, buddy. Oh, I wonder if there's actually... I'm betting there's a... If we don't even acknowledge her to begin with, that's probably end up going to be like death to everyone, right? Let's go find out. Let's go check the other endings. Okay, actually, I'm curious. What would happen if we pick the other houses? Because we've found Wigmars and we know it's broken into. I'm just curious if it would be the same for all 3 houses. Let's check the Walder's house. Oh, okay, that's already changed. There's no cross on it this time. Yes, here are the Walder's doors. Richard's heard a bit about the prosperous family who earned their wealth as cloth merchants. Some say their children stay at home, only for a few days during the year, occupied with business affairs. Earlier, Richard thought it to be a sign of human greed, but who knows? Maybe it was better for them that way. Raising the knocker, Richard suddenly stops. Was it his imagination, or did a slight moan just come from inside the house? Holding his breath, he listens, hoping to prove his fears.
A dark, scary house. Aren't you afraid to go in?
A bit disgruntled with her intervening, the Sanator puts a finger to his beak, telling the waif to be quiet. Shh.
Can't you hear that? Someone's groaning inside.
A woman, sounds like. Taking no notice of Syl, Richard pushes against the door with all his weight. It seems to be unlocked, yet it moves strenuously, like there's something behind it. The Sanator's frantic pushing meets with more resistance, as if someone heaped up flour sacks against the door from the inside.
Just cross out the door and be done with it. Anyway, they're all dead in there. Or you've really got a cure.
Breathing out heavily with each push, Richard still finds the time to answer. We don't do things that way in the Brotherhood. Don't you hear the moans? Someone is still alive.
You still can't cure her. No way you could, Crow. Maybe a scintillate would have a chance.
You could have given me a hand instead. I can't leave her like that. If I can't save her, then I'll just put her to sleep and make her death peaceful. Sale giggles as if she's heard something amusing.
So that's what you're like. Well, take that log and don't faff about. There's a sturdy one, good for your strut.
Thanks for that, oh wise waif. And don't even think to go after me. You'll get tainted.
And what if the Scarfer snatches me while you're busy poisoning people in here?
Perhaps he might shorten that tongue of yours. The log really helps in cracking the door open. When the dark gap becomes wide enough to enter, the Sanator fearlessly steps inside. No wonder the door was so hard to open. A heavy-set man died unlocking it, and his blood-stained body lies in the dark hallway. Someone is breathing heavily and sobbing inside the house. Richard can't find a candle, so he moves through the darkness of the strange house to open the shutters wide by unhinging the hook. His sensitive hearing picks up all sorts of tiny details. Flies buzzing, leaves whispering outside, and a dripping sound. Oh, Richard does know what those drops are. Daylight illuminates the dying one. A bleeding woman lies limply among the sheets, and Richard, as he bends down to her, realizes he's useless here. The malady overtook her and her husband while they were asleep. It's terrible to imagine how they awoke from the pain, realizing in horror that soon they'd be dead. Judging by the red track leading to the door, Mr. Walder had found the strength to crawl to the entrance and call for help, but managed only to unbolt the door before dying. The chance he had wanted to give to his wife was unreachable. Richard doesn't even try to inspect Mrs. Walder's wounds. Her bed and clothes are soaked with blood, and it's really a wonder that she's still alive. Feverish sparks in her eyes, and wide-blown pupils, nearly covering the iris, show clearly that she is suffering, and she watches the Sanator steadily in hope of salvation. A phial with opium tincture appears from his grip sack, and bitter drops start falling one by one between her thirsty, bluish lips, enough to make her sleep and be relieved from unnecessary suffering. He can't afford to do any more than that. Not long ago, it was difficult for him to stay near to those who he refused to let live. But now Richard holds the weak hand of Mrs. Walder as she is falling asleep until the vein in her neck stops pulsating. Yet he could awaken the shadow, plunge into those depths and stretch a saving hand to the woman lying in front of him, tear her out of death's grip. But he won't. Not because it is forbidden by the Senator's regulations, not because she is useless for him and for the Brotherhood. Not all can bear a life on the leash, a life near the one to whom you owe your salvation, and the one you cannot leave until your death. Mrs. Walder wouldn't do. Wait, so is that why anger is like that, chained up inside our mental space? Interesting. Leaving the now deserted house, Richard shuts the door tight and marks it with a wide cross. At night, the morticians will wrap the bodies in tar-soaked hides and take them out of town to where the ashes of yesterday's fires are still smouldering. Thus far, it is possible to burn the corpses.
So, you're drawing it after all. How many died?
Grieved by the sight of death, the Sanator does not want to pretend to be carefree anymore. Why should you care? They're all dead. If you want to pilfer something there, forget it. I don't want the morticians to cart you away too.
Cart me away? Huh. Well, if you say so, I won't go in. So, who was moaning?
The one who was in there no more. We wouldn't have been able to even get her to the hospital, and now it's over for her.
People call all of you crows murderers for a reason.
These simple words prick the Sanator's pride a lot, so he angrily rebukes the waif. Watch your mouth! Not all of us would forgive such riotous talk. We can't save everyone, yes. We have to be ruthless because our enemy is much crueler. Who, if not us? Seal steps back, not expecting such an abrupt change in his mood, and raises her hands as expecting Richard to lunge at her.
No offense, Crowman. I didn't really mean it that way. A lot of people say so. You can't help it.
The Sanator has already steadied himself and now feels awkward for shouting at his simple girl. He's trying to hide his uneasiness behind an expressly cold tone. Keep doing the job. Fools would wag their tongues. Don't listen to them. Better to ask those who are refused at the fortress in daytime and treated at night by people wearing crow masks.
I won't listen then. You only look wicked, but it's not true.
I swear I'll hit you with a stick.
All right, I'll be quiet.
Oh, so I get to go to the other house if I pick that one. Oh, interesting. What about Hein's house then? Tiger violets are quite conspicuous on the Hein's windows. Just as Winfred had said, Richard hears voices inside, and that's already a reason to be happy. It seems a woman is telling some children off for something, and there are footsteps and laughter. Children not yet infected by the all-pervading terror. No, the malady hasn't come here yet, but the scarf's proven to be a reliable indication. Richard must knock and ask.
Merry people live here, kind ones. It would be a pity if they fell ill.
Avis says someone's seen a scarlet scarf on their house. This should be checked. We may save some lives. The waif seems to be amazed by the news, despite recently assuring Richard herself that the scarf is real.
Where could it come from? Who'd hang it? The scarfer?
As if you haven't heard that the infected houses are marked with it. Many have seen it. Still, I don't know who hangs them. Maybe the plague itself. It's happened before. The scarfer has not made up from nothing. This indirect confirmation sparks Sill's curiosity.
So it happened before? Can you tell me, Crow? How can a plague be alive?
I'll tell you, but then you won't sleep at night.
I guess you're pulling my leg, but I'm not a fool, just young. How can it be a living disease? I'd rather believe in a scarfer walking around.
This naive attempt at provocation moves the Sanator, but for the sake of appearances, it decides not to surrender so quickly. Stay quiet for a bit, please. I'll check the house and then tell you, if you must know. After a few knocks, the curtains open, and some frightened yet curious children stare at Richard. Someone fumbles with the lock behind the door, and at last opens, just a little bit, hesitating to let the scary guest in.
What do you want, good brother?
Wait, is this the same woman from earlier? Are you all well in there?
Thanks be to the sleeper. We are all right. No one is ill. The children have had their hands washed.
People say they've seen a scarlet scarf, the mark of the plague on your house. Do you know anything about that? The woman's voice trembles as if she's ready to curse and swear, or burst into tears.
Oh, Elmo, protect us. We haven't seen anything like that. Maybe it's Grandpa's bed cap drying outside. There it is, the red one.
Indeed, it looks like that from afar. You might take it off, though, so as not to call attention. It's a bad omen to these days.
Yes, I will do that right away. Who would have thought?
The Sanator feels that something is not quite as it should be. That there's something apart from the plague that's frightened her. Have you seen anything suspicious, by the way? Maybe someone breaking the quarantine?
Oh, it was so scary last night. There were footsteps and rustling, and it sounded like someone moaning. Must be that damn Scarfo dragging someone to the netherworld.
Richard sighs, wanting to shield his mind from this nonsense. Or some marauders dragging sacks of loot.
How could anyone be brave enough to make sure? What if he looks back at you and then breaks into your house?
The woman stammers, apparently imagining the scene in detail, and then, picking up her courage, continues louder and grumpier.
No, I myself won't look, and won't let the children do so either. This is not the time for looking around.
Well, keep ye safe and sound.
May the sleeper keep you, good brother.
In contrast to the polite farewell, the door immediately slams shut. People are not to be blamed for their superstitious fears. Even the Sanators themselves don't always know what brings maladies, and the commoners know much less. That's why Richard doesn't take offence as Mrs. Hine, rather. He is glad that a possible casualty is averted for a moment. The waif, dangling her feet, waits for the Sanator, while sitting on the steps across the street. When she catches sight of Richard, she smiles cunningly, as if she knew that all would end well. You shouldn't sit on cold stones. You'll catch a cold and won't ever have children. For a moment, Seal looks serious and sad, but she immediately returns to her common, sly shamelessness.
Why should an orphan need children? You promised something, Gov. Do you remember?
If you get married, won't you stop being an orphan? Get up, or I won't tell you anything. Sighing, she obeys, following the rules of his game.
I'm getting up, all right. What about the living disease, huh?
There are two kinds of those. The summoned ones, sent by the mouth cars, and the self-born or equatable ones. They're all spirits, ex-humans, serving the plague maiden, Melamilia. All are dangerous and blind, killing the guilty and the innocent indiscriminately. But if to banish the summoned illness is enough to kill the warlock that had casted it, the self-born one, on the other hand, will disappear when the guilty are dead.
And you? Do you catch them?
Richard only shrugs his shoulders in response. Easy to say, we hunt maleficars, and the self-born ones are stopped only by quarantine. If we don't let the guilty escape, they'll die sooner or later, and the others will be saved.
Don't you pity the people?
We pity them a lot, but do we have a choice? If they scatter, there won't be any respite from the plague. Thousands died like that in the past, and whole regions were deserted. Now is all done otherwise. Science. Seems like the Sanator's boasting doesn't impress Sil. She only laughs in response.
So that's how it is. Well, we'll see your science yet.
Aren't you brave, you draggletail? If you found a bubbo on yourself, you'd run for the fortress right away. Okay, so a lot of the context of the story would have made so much more sense if I'd got that cutscene. But I'd pieced it together anyway. Okay, so we'll return to Wagmar's house and then skip to the next decision. Okay, so how about this time we'll cheat and imprison Syl instead of avenging her? And you tried to trick me. Came to me so that I could find the butcher for you.
Syl tries to appear convincing, but it is clear that she is beset by doubt. Don't you want to stop this pestilence? To stop this absurd string of deaths?
This is my duty, Syl. You won't know the rest until you kill your tormentors, and you won't let us live in peace either.
I haven't forgotten their faces, and the house. I had to forget everything, but I couldn't. Mella's caress awoke my memory.
There are not so many butchers in town. We'll round them up and surely catch yours.
Are you going to trick me?
Richard does not linger with his answer. There is a way for you to be certain.
To take your word for it.
Get inside me. If you don't go too crazy in there, I will endure long enough to find your butcher. Then the plague will be over, and my wounds will heal.
Syl looks astonished by such a proposal. It's apparently hard for her to imagine someone willing to let a cadrat inside them by their own will. What a crazy offer! You're certainly young and strong, but aren't you afraid of the torment and the pain of my curse?
Richard just grins, looking her straight in the eye. I do. Am I not human after all? But if this is the price of all the townsfolk's lives, it must be paid.
She respectfully nods, appreciating his bravery. With such words, you'd fit well in with the court of our Lord Beltane.
Do you agree? Don't delay it any further. There are innocents dying outside these walls.
Syl comes very close and looks into his eyes, as if trying to guess his thoughts, but the Sanator's gaze is straight and honest. She touches his lips with a fleeting kiss, and Richard inhales her, takes her all in, hide and hair. He is slow and hurried to rise from the bed, but then catches his breath and opens his eyes. Some time is needed to catch his breath, to suppress the untimely joy of his victory. The Sanator is breathing deeply, calming his thundering heart. The cage is shut.
Let's go, Syl. Try not to kill me before it's time.
Now he can hear her inside him, so close that it seems that she is whispering into his ear from the inside his head. The malady settles in him like a sated snake, and Richard's chest fills with a warmth that reminds him of a feverish heat. Calor. Soon more symptoms will appear.
You're tough on the inside. Others would already be started to lose blood. How else could we fight you, the cadrat, as equals?
Richard walks the narrow streets in a hurry to get as far as possible before Syl starts to realize what the trick is. He must get to the fortress before starting this game of hide and seek. Where are we going?
We're not going, we're running, my darling.
The Sanator is walking faster, smiling and trying to stay calm as best he can. Syl does not like his answer. Where to?
To the butcher's, of course.
To the fortress.
Richard still tries to be convincing. Each minute is at stake. There are lists of the townsfolk in the houses. Did you expect me to know them all personally?
I don't believe you. Stop!
If we stop to argue, I could die.
You're in my power anyway. I can tear your heart apart if I want to. The Sanator smiles. Even tougher ones have been handled.
Well, you can try.
Richard is focused on walking, trying not to be distracted by the burning sensation around his neck. While she desperately tries to break him, Syl becomes surprised, very surprised. Sooner or later, she will think about attacking him in a different way and sink herself even deeper into his trap. And now to the fortress. His head is going numb,
An unexpected weakness makes the doctor's feet go pitter-pat, and he falls softly on the wet pavement, losing consciousness. It's time to play. Richard runs through the meandering labyrinth of the dream again, but this time not alone. Here, a wrathful sigh does not resemble that little waif anymore, and the nocturnals flee from her in a frightened swarm. Again and again, her hands reach out for the victim and catch nothing. The Sanator dives into the dark tunnels, hides in the gloomy, damp passages, leading the spirit further in until he gets to the innermost depth of the dream. Here, on the narrow gallery, lit by the glow of a heart, he has nowhere to run anymore. It is strange, but Richard is smiling. Syl is approaching, her eyes glowing with rage.
What did you achieve by cheating me, Crow? Now I'll kill you and return to devastate the town. Do you think your crow friends will have time to understand what's happening to you?
It seems I forgot to introduce you to my very nice person.
Your tricks won't help you.
Richard turns away silently, looking at the light. Syl takes a step towards him and freezes. Be gentle with her, Agna. Out of the Sanator's back rises a huge shape with Anger's face, surgical tools held in her numerous hands. A mad, infernally wide smile and glowing eyes makes her even scarier than Syl.
As you wish, dear Richard. Our acquaintance will be quite long. We aren't in a hurry, are we, my dear?
Syl silently darts off, disappearing into the darkness, but the shadow only laughs, looking at her go.
I've always wanted such a toy, Richard.
Soon I'll fall asleep for a very long time. Didn't I promise to save you from the sea?
My generosity will know no bounds. Wake up. I'll take care of her.
Richard awakens, surrounded by crow-like faces, and the glasses of their masks scatter the gleam of sunlight. He is being carried somewhere. The Sanator does not feel the cold. He does not squint as the sun shines into his eyes. A blissful tiredness and a gentle stupor make him relax, and everything around him seems veiled with a thin haze of fantasy. An exorcist brother, walking beside him, asks something. He looks into his eyes and Richard smiles unconsciously, moved by his kindness. It's too late. She's in his dream. He has saved everyone within these walls, and perhaps even more. They say he'll be taken away to Sanat. Listening on, it becomes harder for Richard as he loses the thread of the conversation, entranced by the rhythmic rocking of the steps of those carrying him. He dozes off again. Anger's games take up too much of his strength. Transformed into a living prison for his spirit, Richard was moved to a distant fortress of Corpus Sanati, deep in the outcrops of the Milky Mountains. There, hidden from the world, was the last harbour of those who managed to immure plague spirits, the Kadrat, inside themselves. They were not allowed to die. Dying would set their prisoners free. For months, the acolytes prepared Richard's body for a cold slumber in the deep dungeons of the fortress. They grew an incarnadine lacework of runed steel, connectors on his body. They replaced the blood in his veins with red oil. They drew the intricate signs of the seal on his chest. And when everything was done, Richard Murdoch was laid down in the ark amid frosty pups, and his body was coupled with the mechanisms dating back to the times of Allure. The attendants who covered the sarcophagus with a heavy lid said afterwards that he was smiling to the very end, until the ice bound his face. Wait, so our fate in this one is that we're carbon freezed to prevent the spirit from ever leaving our bodies? Oh, that's brutal. I think I preferred the one where we just got retribution. Okay, so what happens if this time we just go for a completely different route and we just drive her away? Like, we want nothing to do with her. If she doesn't understand the danger, it would be criminal to show untimely lenience. This is not a place for you, waif. I'm not your friend. I'll give you some good advice. Run and pray to the sleeper to protect you from the plague. And if I see you stalking after me, prepare to be caught and spanked. The threats seemed to not frighten the waif as much as they upset her.
Stupid crow, as if I need you. I'll walk anywhere I please. I'm not obliged to do what some long-nose tells me to.
Buzz off, shrimp. Okay, so visiting those houses was basically the same outcome, only without Syl's input, of course, because she was not there, so nothing changed. After visiting the marked houses, Richard walks through the quarantine's quarters, listening carefully for any distress calls. He looks attentively at the doors and the shutters. Are they shut fast? Are there any blood stains? But the gingerbread quarters are silent. Even if there are other people sick behind the doors, they're more afraid of the doctor than of the plague. The waif again, walking down the street as if nothing's wrong. She doesn't even try to hide. Has she been following him around? Bad luck. Why are you still wandering around here, you crazy girl? A plague, a contagion is here, and you hang around the streets? Haven't I told you to find shelter somewhere and wait it out? The scolding does not seem to bother her, and the waif continues to talk back.
Oh sure, I'll find shelter. I'll keep walking around the houses and somebody will surely take me in. Not all are as wicked as you, Crowhead.
Trying to shame me? No. If you have nowhere to go, go to the hospital. You'll die anyway. But at least you won't spread the plague among the people. Grinning cheekily, she keeps talking back, looking at the white mask without fear.
I don't care about people at all. Go to the hospital yourself. Me, I like it here. No way I'll go anywhere.
She just openly teased him. Hey, you, hold it! What impudence! Not many people would dare talk to brothers that way, mocking their instructions. Youthfulness is no excuse to let that display of insubordination go unpunished. Did someone purposely teach her to disrespect an Alma's brotherhood? Surprised and, truth be told, annoyed with the waif's insolence, Richard rushes forward to catch her and take her to the hospital. But she seems to have some experience in running from the guardsmen. She grins defiantly and starts running away, quickly disappearing into a narrow archway between the houses. Richard follows, but she's vanished without a trace. Feeling an odd vexation, he strikes the wall with his stick and goes away empty-handed. Richard must report back to the fortress before continuing in vain labours at the hospital, more fruitless efforts to retain their lives trickling away from dying bodies, trying again and again, failing again and again until the sun hides behind the pointy roofs, and the cool breeze of the evening brings a short respite to the patients desperately gasping for air. Oh, now that's interesting, because I chose to drive away earlier. Taking care of Syl isn't even an option. Oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to drive her away again. You, as I see it, weren't born yesterday. Why are you standing there? Hide and wait. Syl looks disappointed by such an answer.
But where should I hide?
Let's see. No one will care about you in the fortress now. And the Temple of the Sleeper is surely overcrowded. Damn it, just go to my place. Not many would risk getting in there. You can hide in the shed if need be.
And what about you?
Me? I don't have time for entertaining you. People are dying out there, you know. Strangely, this answer angers Syl, and she screams right in his face.
They'll die anyway, you stupid crow!
Just run along, or I'll find a minute to spank such a hussy. Richard walks down the street in a hurry, noticing the horrible signs of the spreading plague here and there. The body is lying on the pavement in the dark, sticky puddles, the blood trickling from under the doors, figures of morticians, shapeless, with all the layers of rags wound around their bodies, busily dragging the corpses onto the cart with long hooks. The quarantine is apparently ineffective. Spirits cannot be stopped by barricades and interdictions. They are not scared of the guards' halberds. Even the brothers' patrols are not much of an obstacle for them. The Sanator enters the houses, seeking the dying, looking to ease their last hours. This is not about mercy. No, the faster the one who had drawn the disaster dies, the more chances they have to save the others. Richard knows that the hunters are already prowling about the town in search of the Malfic, but it is useless. The Scarlet Scarf is spreading outwards, and it means that the spirit that has brought it is after revenge. One by one, the doors of the dying resident are marked with crosses. His doleful work is interrupted in the most unexpected and improper way. A stone thrown at his back surprises Richard more than it wounds him. He is more worried by the fact that anger didn't alert him about the danger. But honestly, is it even a danger? After the second stone is thrown, the Sanator finds it wise to turn and look at the madmen. Indeed, two of them are showing the first signs of pestilence. Blood on their cloths, pupils dilated with pain. The bigger one takes a better. Tries to act tough, and the other, the skinny one, just scowls from under his headband. Apparently, a criminal gang has crept out of its den. The third one seems familiar to him. He's sure he's seen that face somewhere. Damn crows. It's you who brought the plague into the town. And now, you kill off the survivors to put southerners up in houses? Take off the mask. You can tell us the truth to our faces. Pathetic shouts of the unfortunate wretches don't move the Sanator at all. These men are dead, but for some reason they don't want to come to terms with that. Murdoch keeps silently staring at the third one. He is still healthy. He can be saved. Why are you quiet, you corpse lover? Nothing to say? Then we'll keep beating you until you croak. Richard remembers where he saw this face. One contorted with terror, with grizzled temples and bluish white from the loss of blood. Yes, this is the marauder that was taken to the mortuary on Richard's orders. He does not look like a thug. It must be poverty or greed that made him join the bad company. The Sanator points to the man standing a little aside from the brawlers, and all three instinctively flinch. Oh, save the ball of please anger. I want to see what pleasing anger does. Your brother's guts look like ones of a dog. Ask your mother what breed your father was. While a surprised rioter realizes how badly he was insulted, the Sanator turns the handle of his stick and feels the soft click of a brass latch inside. With an angry shout, the rioter rushes at Richard, raising his club for a strike, but meets with a sweep of the stick. With the heavy tube shudders and the spring inside is released. Oh, am I pleasant anger just by murdering? Outwardly, it may look as if the Sanator just hooked the chin of the attacker with the handle of the heavy stick, but instead, a triangular thorn hidden inside the pierced marauder's tongue and palate, and plunged deep into his brain, stopping at the very cranial vault. Not realizing that their fellow was already dead, the rioters try to attack Richard in their turn. He releases his stick, letting the dead body collapse. Richard barely has time to dodge the club aimed at his head. The strike lands on his shoulder, sidelong, leaving a swath of sharp pain. Unable to counterattack, the second wretch is closing in. So, he has to turn the blade of the dirty knife aimed at his stomach aside. The club rises again, but anger is already awakened. It is not to Richard's liking to watch this. It is quite enough to hear them howling. Anger always starts with their feet. to stop the ones who are seeking Richard's life from running away. She simply mimics what she had seen in the dreams and opens up the bodies according to canons of dissection. Living bodies. She takes revenge. It is hard to understand the Shadow's way of thinking. Richard doesn't even try. It is enough for him that, after what's happened, Anger will be obedient and sweet like a kitten. The wolves are sated, and the sheep happen to be a bit scabby. It's only the good people of Tentaria, and that the brothers protect, right? At midday, the Sanators hold council in the town hall. The fortress is closed, the quarantine outposts are reinforced, and the guards manning them are not afraid of getting infected anymore. A brewing riot has been suppressed for the time being, but for how long? Pins are stuck on the town map of the table. The houses wasted by the plague are marked that way. The paper bristles with iron spikes like a mechanical hedgehog. Richard marks the houses he visited himself, one by one, but something seems strange on this map. There is some sort of pattern in the way the pins are becoming arranged. Someone's heavy hand on his shoulder makes Richard start. Deep in his thoughts, he hadn't noticed how his old friend, Brother Weiger, came up to him. The latter is also shrouded in the formal Sanator vestments, but can be easily recognized by the pattern of the seal adorning his mask. Rick, you are daydreaming. Found something, or just trying to appreciate the scale of the disaster? I'm still not sure, Weiger. Take a look for yourself. After all, you were more interested in the art of exorcism than I was. The contract's going in circles. Nothing new about that? That's not what I mean. Look, here are the streets where it all began, and some houses are untouched, though they should have been some of the first. Ah, you mean those? I haven't told you. On the first day of the pestilence, a butcher living there came to us. He paid us handsomely, so we placed the seals for him and his neighbors. Even laughed at the simpleton. We thought it was a natural plague then. Now you can see how it all turned out. The butcher paid for his name. Oh, so clearly it's the butcher's one that did it, right? And all of the ones he paid for are his accomplices. But wait, he paid for the woman with the child's door to be covered, right? So is that woman going to be the one selling the children to the butcher? Oh wow, how did I not piece this together? I completely forgot about that action. So he bought the seals. How prudent of him. Well, that can explain something. Forget him, Richard. We've got a spirit to catch. The guy just got lucky, it happens. Richard shakes his head and the beak of his mask wags, waving a white pendulum above the map. Lucky, was it? Well, Tenebris, take him. It's really not the time. But if it was a summoned Kadrat, I'd bet the Malfic worked in that house. After talking to Weiger for a while, the Sanator leaves. He'd be happy to dismiss the irregularity he had noticed, but his thoughts kept returning to it every now and then. Could the butcher have seen the spirit hanging up scarves? Perhaps. Could he have met a Kadrat before? That's also possible. Could he do something that is likely to persuade Melamilia to release a spirit into reality? There are no good reasons to doubt it. Evidence is needed though. Richard could just break into his house, but even if there was something, it would surely be well hidden. But if he manages to convince the executors that mischief is afoot, confessions will be extracted much faster. Therefore, Murdoch doesn't go out and into the streets of the dying town, taking the keys and the lamp from the attendant. He goes down into the archives to find anything about the cautious butcher. The town hall cellars meet him with the smell of dampness and old paper. Everywhere on the shelves are the lists of all the citizens and the documents recounting their lives. Genealogies, deeds to houses, profiles and denunciations. Somewhere in here is the man he's interested in. Finding Mr. Heinrich Wilborough. It was not easy, but certainly worth it. No, there was nothing reprehensible in his papers. He was a rich man who had come to Restaurant to nearly across the whole of Tantaria, an owner of a prospering business, a respectable member of the Butchers' Guild. Who could consider it suspicious for a butcher to buy several farms in the country for cattle breeding? Who would blame him for making rounds in the villages, buying meat and selling it to the townsfolk? His customers were respectable people. He didn't even need to have a shop at the market. But Richard remembered what stirred the far western provinces of Tantaria 12 years ago. Then, the exposed refugees of the Ragazan cultists were burnt out by the combined forces of the whole Shield Directory. The crowds of the refugees from the regions engulfed in the conflict, very similar to the war, that could not always be checked carefully enough. He had to make sure this filth hadn't grown roots in here. Hastily locking the archives, the Sanator hurries outside, leaving the key and the lamp with the attendants. If Mr. Willibrow's neighbors are still alive, they may have noticed something that might substantiate the accusations. Enthralled by the thought of a knot fastening around the neck of an alleged culprit, Richard does not notice how the streets have changed. When he finally sees it, he stops in fear, moving his beaky mask from side to side. In vain hope, as far as the eye can see, the houses are decorated with defiant, brazen scarlet scarves, floating in the imperceptible breeze, fluttering on the carven figures of weather vanes, hanging on the shutters, sweeping from under the doors, and slinking out of birds' nests under the eaves of the roofs. Are you enjoying the view? And there's the waif again. Syl comes from behind his back, onto the street out of nowhere. Richard steps back from her. The same bright, blood-red scarf is fluttering on the wife's neck. Where have you gotten that thing from?
Do you want one? I got this one at a high cost.
A guess pierces the Senator's mind, but he hesitates and makes one more attempt to save his nearly shattered illusions. Are you ill, or...
Forgive me, Crow, for leading you on. It's not so easy to believe the enemy in my line of work.
I'd like to understand why you'd even talk to me. A doctor is not a friend of the malady.
Syl looks at him in an unusually serious way and cocks her head to the side, suddenly asking, Maybe you think I'm devastating this town on a whim, amusing myself, like Kurtzia.
No, I know you came for someone's blood, but you are unable to find it.
You're one wise crow, then. How did you know? Maybe you've already found my enemy.
I'm not sure yet, but there is one likely candidate. Tell me, how are you going to look for him?
Syl freezes, thinking, but after a few moments she raises her eyes, bright and glowing with malice. I remember the house, the butcher's house. It was never home to me, so the ordeals didn't erase my memories completely.
Oh, okay. So we've got the two choices again. You know what? I do enjoy the retribution. Promise Syl to find her home. I think this decision would be most fair. Let's go, Syl. Let's find that damned house and free the town of you and from your revenge.
I was not mistaken about you, Crow. Hurry. I'm tired of the blood river flowing through me.
Without a backward glance, Richard goes to where the plague began, to the most remote section of the quarantine quarters, which the pestilence has already ravaged and left rows of crosses on the doors. He knows that Syl is following him silently, and he has only to make sure that his suspicions about Mr. Wilbrow are true. I could ask the neighbours to go to the butcher's. You know what, let's just go to the butcher's. We know it's true. Wasting time by conducting an investigation in full compliance with the rules in this situation is an unaffordable luxury. Richard Murdoch does not value instructions enough to pay in lives for following them. If he is mistaken and Mr. Wilbrow is innocent, He'll just join the ranks of those who perish these days. Risking Heinrich's life for the sake of saving many others seemed prudent enough to the Sanator. Soon, he sees the house marked on the maps, rather a modest dwelling for such a rich man. Couldn't Mr. Wilbur afford something swankier? Well, wealth and greed often go hand in hand. Or perhaps he just liked the salad. A circle of the seal, set on the door, slightly glows in the evening twilight. Richard raises a stick and knocks loudly, summoning the landlord. Heavy steps are heard inside, and the candle light flickers. A low, coarse voice inquires from behind the door. "Who's it the tenebra brings?" "The brothers, a routine round of surviving dwellings, Mr. Wilbur." The door doesn't hurry to open. Judging by the invitations, the one behind is a drunk even now. "Must we be rounded? We're alive, praise be the sleeper. You'd better go treat the sick." At a different time, Richard would have threatened the impertinent, but now he has a much more elegant key to his door. "I'll write it down then. Refuse the seal renewal by his own will. Ask not to be disturbed anymore. Good night." Seems like the wine spirit is promptly exorcised from the butcher's head by the magic word seals. Hey, stop, wait, I'm opening. Why didn't you say you were the exorcists?" The clattering of bolts and the clanking of keys is heard from within. Whoever Heinrich may be, he is surely afraid not only of the spirits, but of humans too. He fiddles with the locks, cursing through his teeth, but at last the door opens and Richard has the dubious pleasure of meeting the homeowner. "You come alone? Go on, draw it. I'll bring the pass." Richard raises his hands, refusing, pretense to an unselfish zeal. No, don't mention it. You've donated generously. It's quite enough. I'll examine the seals, and if the spirits try to break in, I'll reinforce them for free." The butcher could find that suspicious, but he only scratched his head, slowly sobering up. "So that's how it is. Save ye the sleeper then." "Some powerful people asked to take care of you. It would be disrespectful to refuse them such a small favor." "Wow, they remember the poor butcher. My goods are not for beggars." "Maybe I should buy veal from you too. Pink, tender and slightly sweet, just as the gentleman said." Mr. Wilbur's tone changes. He obviously ponders hastily how to drive the annoying brother away. "Oh, good brother, I don't even know how to put it. My supply orders are scheduled 6 months in advance. Can I refuse the regular customers? Maybe you could come back later about it." "The pestilence sure got some of them. Not all of as thoughtful as you, Mr. Wilbur." "The pestilence, yeah. What do you mean?" Richard looks at the butcher, feeling that he's starting to lose patience. "The pestilence won't stop until the Kandrat finds her murderer, Mr. Wilbur. For how long will you hold out in your house? A month? 2? Heinrich is already angry and frightened. He tries to press on the Sanator, angrily shaking his thick finger in front of the crow's mask. "You're the brothers! What use are you if you can't kill him, his spirit? That's your job!" Richard, by contrast, speaks even more calmly and even kindly, as if talking to a baby. "She'll come back again and again. We fight not only the consequences, but the reasons first and foremost." The butcher is shouting now. "So go and fight, instead of chatting on my doorstep!" Not all unjustly murdered return to Kadrat. Melanilia wouldn't let her get back here, were it not for the deeds that her lord particularly dislikes. High-coloured with emotion, Mr. Wilbur spits in rage, twitching like a fish on a hook. "What in blazes are you telling me this? Do your business and get—" Stopping abruptly, as he sees something behind Richard's shoulder. He goes white with fear and opens his mouth silently, as if he were punched in the stomach. The Sanator doesn't need to look back. He knows who's been following him the whole time. The butcher at last takes control of himself and shuts the door with a smash, the bolt clanging. I'll call the Exorcist to erase the seal.
Oh, my crow, don't worry. My memories have returned to me. I can't pass through these walls, but there is another entrance that he wouldn't show you to the brothers.
Hurry up, Sil. He's yours.
Farewell, Crow. I'll forget you in Esterknife, but not what you've done for me.
Sil smiles warmly, glowing from happiness, and slowly sinks underground, moving towards the butcher's house, as if going down an invisible staircase. Richard pulls off his now unneeded mask from his face and sits down on the doorstep, tiredly leaning against the door. When the first screams come from inside, he smiles. Sil doesn't seem to be in a hurry. Richard can hear stomping feet, furniture falling down, and the sound of pots smashed. He can easily imagine what's going on inside. How the fat man bolts from the salad door to the kitchen, bumps into the stool, knocking it over with a crash. He throws a pot at Sil, as if the ethereal spirit can be stopped with such a mundane object. He reaches inside the oven, burning his hands, trying to grab some coals. Not a bad idea, but still useless. Unable to endure the heat, he drops his last hope with a cry of pain and despair. Sil is already near, and a swing of her hand rips a strip of flesh from the butcher's body, the first one. From afar comes the buzz of the crowd and gleams of torches. Brother Weiger trusted Richard's intuition and didn't hesitate. Unlike him, one by one, beaked figures come along, grouping around the Sanator. The Kadrat and her murderer are inside. But the house, arrest all the customers of the butcher, they'll try to flee. What will be the accusation? Ragazan's cult. Mr. Wilburow's house was the first pyre out of many that flared up around Restaurant. Soon, all the town knew who was the cause of the plague, and the hunt for the surviving customers of the butcher began. The Brotherhood executors barely had time to snatch the suspects from the hands of the angry mob, but they were hardly better off that way. More than 30 individuals were accused of worshipping the god of torment and executed in the town square. A lot of information about the cult sows in the area and other cities was obtained from them, and a massive persecution swept the region. The Brotherhood took this opportunity to eliminate known troublemakers and dangerous nobles, consolidating its authority. The hero who stopped the pestilence, Richard Murdoch, wasn't forgotten either. He was aggressively opposing the improper conduct of the investigation in Ragazanity's cases. To get him out of the way, a letter was sent to the Grand Prior of Corpus Sanity, where Richard's story was presented very favourably and a promotion suggested. The latter was indeed approved. When summoned to Kerneberg, Richard Murdoch was granted the rank of Grand Sanator, and his new title didn't leave him much time for intruding into the affairs around Restaurant. Understanding that he couldn't win this fight, Brother Murdoch volunteered to head one of the missions of Corpus Sanitae in the distant region of Taiga, near Lake Tana, where he chose to remain, finding solace in the relatively quiet far away from the city bustle. Some malicious gossips would say this evenings were blessed not with the service of the people of Tantaria, but with the berry hooch and the caresses of a native Alya girl. But everyone's allowed to have guilty pleasures, right? Well, I suppose at least he got a happy ever after. The brothers seem to be a dangerous threat now, though. Just that line, they used this opportunity to remove people that could be problematic. There's a concerning thought. And I still want to know how the mother of the children fit into it, right? The little girl at the start who hid behind her. Because she had the seal as well. I wonder if we'd get that if we actually went to visit the neighbours first. Let's have a look. Okay, what was this time? We saved the fool. Yesterday your brother died trying to steal gold from a dead house. Will you join him? Or will you go away before it's too late?
The question is more than enough. The paling lad steps back, drops the club out onto the pavement with a muffled tap, and then flees. His comrades are not quite as wise though. Richard meets the first one, running up to him with a punch to the belly. The strike, which would make even a healthy man choke, hurts like hell to the Scarlet Scarf victim. Dropping the club and howling painfully, he falls down and curls up like a fetus. The second one tries to stab the Sanator with a short, dirty knife, but Richard nimbly catches the wrist and strikes him with an elbow almost without swinging. A wet crack and a clang of metal on the stones. Richard steps back, letting his enemy take in the new, unnatural bend in his arm, which is broken near the elbow. He hates these two. Not for the attack, no. He hates them because anger will praise him, because they encouraged him to trust the shadow. He hates them so much that he goes away without finishing them off. Oh, okay. Interesting. So I'm no longer able to promise Syl to find her home. And the only option I've changed in this run is that I didn't drive her away the very first time. So maybe to get that option, you need to drive her away twice. Anyway, but we're going to cheat and imprison Syl. And you want to find your murderer's house for you. You won't refuse, will you? I'm not afraid of killing you again and again, but time is running out, and the prospect of staying here forever doesn't appeal to me.
Richard nods in agreement. You won't know rest until you kill your tormentors, and you won't let us live in peace either.
I can't find the house myself. I just wander around, knock on the doors, but it's not there.
There are not so many butchers in this town. Besides, I'm quite sure that your murderer is one Heinrich Wilbro.
Are you going to trick me?
As if showing doubt,
the Senator turns away slightly,
then confidently steps towards Syl. There is no way for you to be certain.
To take your word for it.
Get inside me. If you don't go too crazy in there... Oh wait, is this going to be the same ending? Because this is all the same text. Syl comes very close and looks into his eyes, as if trying to guess his thoughts, but the Senator's gaze is straight and honest. The mask falls on the pavement with a thump. The Cadrat touches his lips with a fleeting kiss, and Richard inhales her, takes her all in, hide and hair. Some time is needed to catch his breath, to suppress the untimely joy of his victory. Okay, no, that just gave us the same route where anger killed her and we got bio-frozen. That's fine. So I'm guessing then the last ending must be us driving her away twice and then saying we'll help her to get her revenge and go speak to the neighbours. I feel like that's our only other route we can take. Okay, so we promised to help her, and now we ask the neighbours. Only a few houses survived in the wake of the unnatural pestilence, and all thanks to the very man Richard is going to give over to Syl. Why did he pay for the seals on his neighbours' houses? Did he want to divert suspicions? Or was he bound to them by something more than the mere place of residence? Anyway, if he wants to get information, he must question them extremely carefully. Hide, Syl. When I find your murderer's house, I'll bring him over for you to welcome.
Don't delay it, Crow.
Richard knocks on the door long and hard before any sound comes from inside. If it wasn't for the lack of a cross on the door, he would have thought it would be deserted. But it's not the malady that keeps the inhabitants from answering, it's the fear. Apparently, without a bit of lying, Richard won't get any answers. Good citizens, is anyone alive there? Shall we burn the house?
Alive and well, nobody's sick here.
Would you open the door, good sir? The voice behind the door becomes a little steadier. I'm coming, hold on. The sound of bolts sliding back are heard, and the door opens with a creak. presenting a pale, nervous man squinting at Richard with pure blind eyes. He looks at the Sanator with fear, but also with a hidden hope. If the crows haven't left, the town can still be saved. We're listing houses for burning. Quarantine measures. Are you sure you've not got no sick people around? None at all. All are safe and sound, just hiding in the cellar. What about your neighbors, the meat sellers? After thinking about it for a while, he nods, and the tassel of the scarlet cap dances on his skinny shoulders. Think they're alive? We've seen lights through their windows recently. The Sanator makes an uncertain gesture with his hand, as if asking the man to come closer and talk quieter. That's good. Do you know who's currently living there by chance? The butcher and his wife. There was also a maid, a little pimple, but she's run away since Heinrich likes to drink and he's heavy-handed too. She's cleared out in time then. Well, lock it up and keep you well. We'll be done here soon. The house with tiger violets on the windowsills. Just yesterday, one could hear laughter coming from there. And now Richard has to wait until his knock is answered. No one is trying to peer from behind the shutters in order to find out who came to their door and what news he brought. The merry house became silent, not wishing to tease the plague with children's laughter. The woman who talked to him yesterday doesn't waste time on niceties today. Sleeplessness and fear have exhausted her, drained her. You again? Me again. How are you? Is everyone well? She nods in answer, sighing. I took the children to the Sleeper's Temple. It's certainly safer there, but the father has completely fallen apart. How could I leave him here? It's safe here now. The seal has been set on your doors. It has. May the Sleeper save my neighbor Heinrich. Perhaps it was what saved us. Richard steps forward, trying to make his voice sound trustworthy. How long have you known him for? About 8 years. We got acquainted when he moved here. And what concern is that of yours? Mere curiosity. Have you noticed anything strange about him? Richard seems to be misunderstood. The woman's indignant tone leaves little place for interpretation. Listen, do you take me for a sneak? I've never earwigged in my life, and I'm not going to start now. Have they all gone mad in good old Rustant? Think whom you're talking to. Richard grips the woman by the neckpiece, dismissing the ripping sound of cloth makes, and nearly hisses in her face, which has become pale with fear. No, you listen. Your neighbour Heinrich is suspected of a malefic, which brought the pestilence to this town. If we don't stop him, it will be the end of your children and everyone shouting in the temple. Is it clear now? Even when his grasp weakens, Mrs. Hine holds on to the black glove, trying not to look at the crow mask and shaking her head as if persuading herself that she has heard a lie. Sleeper protect! I've never noticed any sorcery about him. He's a butcher like any other. They may come to buy meat at night, but our governor feasts until morning. Maybe he sends his cook for supplies. So someone came at night for the meat. But what else could one come to the butcher? And sometimes there's blood on the pavement in the morning. Richard lets Mrs. Hine free and spits a terrifying explanation at her. Now, put two and two together. That was human blood. If it wasn't for your children, you deserve to be whipped for your misprison. How could I know? So you mean those servant girls didn't run away? That may be hard to do. Dismembered. Leaving the terrified woman alone, Richard heads to Mrs. Wilburow's place. Because the thing that's still not adding up to me is why would Wilborow protect her if she's not involved in knowing everything? Because it doesn't look like he did just the entire surrounding neighbourhood, did he? He only protected the people involved. From afar comes the buzz of a crowd and gleams of torches. Brother Weiger trusted Richard's intuition and didn't hesitate, unlike him. One by one, beak-headed figures come along, grouping around the Sanator. The neighbors have testified, if indirectly, regarding the guilt of Heinrich Wilbro. No time to gather all the evidence. May the Kandrat's ordeal judge him. Yes, it may seem unfair, wagering someone's life in the hope that he's the reason for the epidemic disaster. But drastic times call for drastic measures. The brothers do not need much time to take the butcher's house by storm. In less than half an hour, he is led out onto the street, not exactly fit to run away. It seems all his strength is spent keeping the sharp thorns of the holder bat away from his neck. Sil, do you recognize your sworn enemy?
Yes.
The butcher turns purple and lets out a horrible scream as his skin opens like a scarlet scarf. The execution does not last long. It seems that Sil doesn't wish to restrain herself, yet Richard is not disappointed in the vast end. Heinrich Wilbro was not acting alone. He had hoped to take his secrets to the grave. A brother standing next to him shows the gesture that Heinrich has expired, and the second one takes the holder bat off the neck of the dead man. Richard comes closer to look into the killer's eyes. When the time comes, the Sanator kneeling by the body has already started the helping hand ritual, and Richard smiles beneath his mask. After a few minutes, the blood-stained body twitches, and a strong convulsion, and the butcher's eyes open. Welcome back again. He always says this to those brought back to life, whether as a heartfelt greeting or as a promise of reckoning. Heinrich shouldn't expect the former in this case. We haven't had time to ask you for something. The executors will specify the list. Once in the Brotherhood's torture chamber, Heinrich Wilbro cracked like a rotten nut. Thanks to his testimonies, the other cultists were caught, strings stretched in all directions. More and more faces were emerging from the troubled waters. Under the cover of the massive persecution, which weakened many nobles' positions, the Brotherhood also dealt with those who were not implicated in worshipping Ragazan. But Richard was already far away, nominated for an award and promoted to Grand Sanator. He was left more or less to his own devices and unexpectedly joined an obscure group known as Corvi Beatori. As a travelling doctor, he visited many corners of Dontaria, from the magnificent capitals to the villages lost in Taiga, always staying only where his help was needed. Some say he has friends amongst the savage Alya and the swamp folk, who can truly follow a crow flying around the country. Those few fragments of his biography that became known were provided by the orphans who lived at the Brotherhood orphanages thanks to Richard. It is not known for sure where his journey ended, but one hopes that the crow, as he would introduce himself to the children, had indeed made a nest for himself rather than falling mid-flight. There we go, so I got all the endings right. Yes! It is complete. Congratulations, Sanator. Today, you finally put an end to the epidemic. Rustant is now safe. However, everything has a price. But this is not the end. This is the beginning. Who knows when these bizarre pathways of the spark will lead you? The roads of fate that you have chosen on your own. What is this? Wild Trails of Tantaria. The cold wind that forced its way through the yellowing forest made the crowns of Ancorias proudly stretching towards the sky whisper. The soft autumn sun has long been lost between the trunks of mighty trees, only sometimes peeking out onto the road timidly. A lonely traveller, wrapped in a spacious travelling cloak, was riding on a horse heavily laden with saddlebags. Past him, leaves flew like carmine butterflies, clinging to the wool of his cloak, as if wanting to remain on it is a bright patch or buckle. Nothing about the wanderer would have seemed suspicious from afar. Aside from his recklessness, only a few people would dare to wander Tantaria alone, especially when night was near. Only an attentive look would have caught that his lips whispered soundlessly, and that his eyes were full of some kind of childish curiosity. Wait! Are we younger or older? I can't quite tell. Well, our beard is longer, so maybe older. The traveller looked tired, but at the same time his gaze rushed around with unusual liveliness. Sometimes he raised his head, which might frighten the observer. The greedy movement of his pupils and the fatigued immobility of his face were incompatible with each other. It seemed like he tried to look at everything. His eyes watched the leaves fall and immediately tried to encompass the heights of the trees. They rested on his horse's nape and then rose up, catching the outlines of wild geese flying south. Anga watched the world. It wasn't difficult to ride without eyes. The clever horse looked where it stepped, and there was nowhere to turn from the forest path. Richard was more exhausted with the flow of questions from the shadow, and the answers to which he often couldn't find. "Why do all the leaves turn red and fall?" asked Anga. "It's autumn, the wind." The Sanator tried to get off easy. "And green leaves do not fly?" Anga marvelled. "And not all reds do. Why is it so?" But when Richard began to invent an explanation, the shadow's gaze had already found a new toy. "I'll look at the leaves later," she apologised. "I'll remember where they are. And what's that in the sky now?" "A cloud?" The Sanator tried to guess. "One of the moons, a bird?" The sound of cranes told him what Anga's eyes were looking at. "The migratory birds are hurrying over the mountains from the cold," he explained, and the shadow was silenced for a short time, watching the triangle of flocks hiding behind the trees. It was getting darker. It would be better to stop and build a fire while it was still possible to find a convenient place to sleep. But Richard didn't want to hasten Anga. It was not often that she had the occasion to look at the world with her own eyes, and the Sanator was ashamed to deprive her of these little joys. He didn't realize that the darkness had thickened around them, and instead of the setting sun, the greenish moon, Norian, was shining. He was alarmed by something. His horse was worried. The tired horse snorted and shook its head, speeding up the pace, although there was nowhere to hurry to. "Anga, what's wrong with the horse?" "He's worried. He probably doesn't like the rustling bushes or the eyes watching us." "Yeah, that's a little concerning, I'm not gonna lie." "Eyes?" "They've been following us for a long time, but I don't feel threatened." "Come back, we're in trouble," he ordered. "What are you doing? I would have smelled the danger." "We'll figure it out later. Return the eyes to me, or this forest will be our grave." The reminder of death sobered the shadow, and Richard instantly received his sight, suddenly riding on a speeding horse in the dark forest, surrounded by wolves pursuing him on both sides. He barely had time to duck the broken branch hanging over the path that would have otherwise knocked him out of the saddle, leaving him almost helpless in the midst of company, wishing to feast on him. "Tenebra, take me! They're everywhere!" The Sanator spurred the horse, who was rushing with all his might. Heavy travelling bags hanging on straps on both sides of the saddle dangled and jumped. Hindering the horse, Richard realized that they couldn't outrun the wolves with these bags. As ill luck would have it, the handle of his knife was tangled in the folds of his cloak, and the Sanator couldn't get to it to cut the straps without holding the bags. Finally, after a dozen strokes of the heart, Richard managed to grab it. The sharp-edged blade of his short skinning knife glittered in the moonlight. He grabbed the bow of the saddle, trying not to let go of the knife or reins, and swung swiftly, cutting into the wide straps of the bags that were dancing at the dangerous proximity to his feet. Without a second thought, Murdoch sliced the strap that was right before his eyes. But it would have been better if he hadn't. Left without the main fastening, the heavy bags with supplies and the Sanator's things hanging off the saddle, the bags tangled in the legs of the unfortunate horse, and he reared with a loud neigh, dropping the rider to the wolves' mouths. Richard clutched the saddle with all his might, but the girth broke, and he fell to the ground, the curse tangled to the stirrups. The knife in his hand couldn't save him from their rapacious draws, and his horse was already rushing off somewhere into the night. Several wolves ran after the animal, but Richard knew the others were too much for him. Grasping at this miserable weapon, he pressed his back against a tree, bidding farewell to anger, and getting ready to sell his life dearly. The darkness behind his back thickened in ribbons, growing like a black bird spreading its wings wide. "Well, come on already!" Richard yelled spitefully at the wolf that was creeping up to him, readying to pounce. But in the next moment, a glass in his bag crackled sonorously, and a bright flame broke forth from the pouch's opening, swelling with a smoky bubble. Most likely one of the vessels of essence that the Sanator had taken on his journey in order to make a fire in the damp, rainy weather had cracked after falling. The wolf sprang back from the bag, and Richard didn't miss his chance. A powerful kick to the iron-studded boot threw the flashing bag into the air and ripped open its cracked material. Things flew apart, covered in alchemical fire, and highlighting the trees with flashing flames. The low growling branch of a tall Ancoria seemed to offer rescue to the Sanator. Richard rushed to the tree, feeling the essence stuck to his boot, burning through the leather and leaking deeper and deeper. Only one wolf attempted to block his way, but the Sanator tried daringly to kick it in the muzzle, and it recoiled at the sight of his flaming boot, clinging to the creaky branch. Murdoch quickly climbed up the branchy crown, and only there hastened to tear off the burning boot from his foot. Cursing, he launched it at one of the wolves. "Damn you!" he shouted at the beasts in useless anger, watching his burning luggage and wincing at the pain in his burned leg. The wolves answered him with a dreary, uneven howl. Realizing that the beasts wouldn't be disappearing soon, Richard found a fork in the tree branches to comfortably lay down on, tying himself to the branch with his bout. It was necessary to save his strength until there was an opportunity to escape. He tore off the Ancoria leaf and began to chew the bitter, fibrous stuff, distracting himself from the pain in his leg. It should be better in the morning. In the meantime, sleep. Sleep would take away both the annoyance and pain, as always. Following the path. The horse walked slowly along the leafy road, and the clatter of hooves was muffled in the many-coloured veil, moist from the morning dew. Here, a lonely traveller had to save his horse's strength. Often, it was the only chance to escape the inhabitants of thickets. But today, the path was calm. The forest sang its usual song. The crowns of Ancorias whispered in the wind. The smaller trees creaked as their bases, and small birds persistently echoed each other, as if warning off the danger that was rushing beneath the treetops. The danger was not interested in them, however. An intimidating war dog was running through the undergrowth and didn't pay attention to the birds, too busy with its finding. "Embers," the horsewoman called to the dog. He gave a low yelp in response to her voice, but didn't leave the place, just barked invitingly. Critter stopped her horse and dismounted. From under her feet and the dense layer of moss, large flat plates peeked out here and there, the legacy of ancient times. even more ancient than what she and her elder were seeking. Critter walked slowly to her dog, who was waiting for her. She held her hand on the hilt of a short blade that was sleeping in a scabbard at her waist. She unsheathed it, though she didn't sense any danger. Embers wasn't worried, but only wanted to show her something. However, the sleeper helps those who help themselves. She was taught caution, and she was a good student. Critter's alertness was unneeded. She scratched her dog hard on the scruff so he could feel the caress through his thick fur. He grumbled gratefully, looking up at his mistress. The girl told him to watch with a short gesture and then sat to examine the findings. Wait, that's not me, right? Did I actually die out here? In front of her was a body that had been there for so long. Buttercups had grown through the bones. Judging by the rotten rags, which were once an expensive silk, it was clear that the deceased was rich. Was he a nobleman or a trader? It wasn't so important. Critter's attention was drawn to what was left of a bag near the body. She carefully touched the sprawling fabric with her knife and tore it apart. Greenish coppers, sodden and stuck together in mouldy paper, rusted gear wheels, the mint of coinage. Nothing of value. Suddenly, it seemed that the rags of the corpse moved slightly. In a gap of the fabric, a chain appeared to have fallen into the ribs. Having pinned it with the knife point, Critter extracted a ring of green alloy. No, not precious, but skillfully made and covered with the strange patterns. Not like the letters she was taught, not the angular arrows of the augury, the signs of wildcats the elder studied. This should be shown to him. Come on, she said to the dog as she returned to her horse, who was chewing a bush. It was a miracle that no one had discovered this body before. Wild animals hadn't torn it to shreds. Ants hadn't all completely cleaned the bones. But along the path, the forest didn't look dead. The birds sang, the forest bloodsuckers buzzed. Critter didn't feel any danger. Was this corpse a sign that whatever the elder was searching for is nearby? Maybe, but it wasn't the strangest finding among those that she had happened to see during the campaign. To return just to show the ring would be foolish. She had to go further. Just leaving a mark was enough. She took a white ribbon from her saddlebag and tied it to a rod that was sticking out of the slabs near the body. In 2 days, the Brotherhood following her would figure out what to do. When she climbed onto the horse, a small sack of sweets fell out of her bags. It had been given to her by the wandering brother of the Viatori corpse, who had met with her yesterday. His hair was as red as Critter's. Okay, so we're not the dead guy. That's good, that's lucky. Critter lifted the sack and was going to put it back, but Embers was wagging his tail, looking inquiringly at his mistress. The girl sighed and took out some sweets. Tenebra with you. Have some, you've earned it. She fed him a couple of sweet cracknels and ate one herself, hoping that she wouldn't want to drink soon. These corvuses, roaming the thickets, are certainly strange, the girl thought, but it wasn't for her, Almo's hound, to judge this. Critter travelled onward. The first of the 4 destinies of Richard Murdoch is chosen. The Sanator, who joined the ranks of Corvi Viatori, is set on a path full of perils and hardships. Actions of the wedding unfold in the village of Utenhan, lost in the midst of Tantaria boundless forests. Here, Richard must meet face to face with the most insane ritual of the North. Moreover, he must become its direct participant. Our new story is one that is not included in the official reports of the Brotherhood. It is the lost page, which they tried to erase, but they could not. Sanator. The wedding. Oh, so that's gonna be the next game, right? Ooh, I'm interested. I'm intrigued. Well, I hope you enjoyed that playthrough of Sanator Scarlet Scarf. I still maintain that I think my favourite ending was the first one we found. Because, I mean, I know World still got justice and multiple endings. When the Brotherhood gained too much power, that seemed concerning towards me. I think it was best we took the justice into our own hands. As always, if you want to check out the game, I'll leave the link in the description below. If you've enjoyed your time here, then please remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Other than that, I hope you have a spooky day and I'll catch you next time, guys.